some issues were discussed, and we came to three main issues to be discussed. One of them is consent. Because we realized that there are, initially we thought, what are we going to do? We are HIV specialists, medical people, what is it to do with law? And when we discussed, we realized that there are so many legal issues or medical legal issues which need to be tackled. So ultimately we crystallize only on three issues. And first one is consent. So let us first discuss consent and then we go to other issues. Consent, informed consent, whatever you may say.
If child पास रखा, then इसमें कोई ज़्यादा होता है। एक पौड़ा जितना ज़्यादा होगा तो उसका पौड़ा ज़्यादा होता है। So they have reduced slowly अभी कितना तो उसका पौड़ा ज़्यादा होता है। So they have reduced slowly अभी कितना इसे 20-30 years number of nights का ऐसे मिलता है। So you have to go down now. It is other diseases. We are killing that. HIV like hypertension, diabetes, treatable conditions. Eat like that only now. Why should go up to above and have consent like that? So what I suggest is that opt-in, opt-out. That is the best idea. So you have the list of investigation, diabetes, blood pressure, sugar, CAD, CBC. HIV is that one of the things. You have to do these tests before you go for this treatment or before you go for any surgery. We are not, even sugar is not there, we are not going to operate. But kidney function we are not going to operate. HIV is okay, one of the things. The part of the investigations for the management of the positive. So opt-in, opt-out. That's the best idea.
So the first question is, should there be a specific consent or should it be part of the general consent?
Opt-in, opt-out.
That's what the world over is there right now, because US has started with the pre-testing consent and they have also gone into an opt-in, opt-out program for quite a few years now. And I think that's what is required, because you can't every time ask the person when he's coming for a medical therapy. There are people who want it for surgery, there are people, if you don't do an HIV something, you don't diagnose what is the patient as well. So you have to do it, and every time you ask him to take a consent and test, it's basically not tested. Person comes in, he knows that he will be tested. You can tell him that I'm doing a testing for this. If he says no, that's fine. So that is all.
That's all the list. See, basically, in a countries like India, why it has become so important? Because it is linked with sex, and because we have a judgmentalness, which is there world over, but it is much more in a country like India, which is with some cultural ethos, etc. So, had it not been linked with sex or sexual transmitted disease, then people would have been in favor of doing testing automatically or without even consent. Second issue is our people have also judgmentalness, because even though there are other ways of transmission, but we still, as soon as we say HIV or any STD, we take it to that it is sexually transmitted. And our attitude toward the patient changes. Now, a lot of times patients come and say that on every note, somebody is coming and asking RVD. Yesterday I had a patient who is the mother of a doctor. And she is saying that, sir, everywhere they write RVD or there are so many terminologies. I said, you bring all the terminologies used by our medical profession. Everywhere they want to identify. What are they going to gain there? So that is a problem. That everywhere we would like to identify the person with HIV disease. We write on even death certificate on every case. Even the insurance claim, that is not done because you write HIV. If it is not done, not written, then nobody would object.
Yeah, at least in our hospital we never write HIV for anywhere, except that patient needs the diagnosis for the means for the that they get monthly.
Yeah, if it is HIV-related illness, then you
pension. They get monthly pension 600 rupees per patient. Then we write for them because they need diagnosis for that. Other than tuberculosis, diarrhea, what is the different diagnosis there? Other than HIV, we write everything except HIV. And he report to write sugar, we have got and then one of the cases HIV positive in the investigations.
Actually, I think quite often I do it even the other way around. In private practice, I don't write down the HIV at all on my paper. If at all, I write down the sign, which is the inverted ribbon. That's what I put it. If it is 1 or 2, I may write down 1 or 2 by the side. So that is 1 or 2.
No, so, what you are suggesting, that is a problem, because everybody is suggesting their way of writing.
I know. I understand that, but basically, see, people who are treating HIV, they know at least that this is an for HIV. General public often doesn't know about that particular aspect. Secondly, the same even if you're writing about counts and viral loads. I just write on VL, I don't write HIV viral load. I just write on VL because VL and in the setting when I'm writing down D4 and D3 and D8 and we mention it in that particular order, percentage and absolute. People understand what is that. Basically treating or treating HIV.
No, there are two things. There are two things. One is writing HIV, RBD, etc. for HIV related illness and management and medical.
That certificate they never mentioned.
But there are issues where people are for say some surgery or bypass or any investigation which is unrelated to HIV. Still they write retroviral disease.
Yeah, so patients, like if I have to send somebody
Or
because
UP.
for other medical person who doesn't know and he is going for a procedure, he said, please at least let us know that we take additional precaution. So I write down a note to that particular doctor that this patient is seropositive and I'm sending for
I
this.
just want to add one thing.
Yeah.
We have to see which perspective the consent and counseling, the counseling was formulated. Basically, it was regarding the stigma and discrimination associated with HIV, which is not associated with diabetes and other diseases.
Yes.
The amount of the societal tendencies in the pre-test counseling is not done and consent is not done. So there are the main two issues because of which we are talking about consent as well as pre-test counseling. Now here what I am hearing on one side, you are saying that we should not discriminate and we should have a general thing consent as far as the diabetes is concerned. On the other hand, you only are telling that I don't write the HIV, I don't write. So this is absolutely
This was
the change.
Yeah, there are different aspects.
So what let me finish. So the consent has come in specifically for HIV for these two reasons. And if you don't do a consent, are we prepared? You are talking of USA, but are we prepared like USA where you are not going to defer or deny the treatment? So that is another aspect. Sitting here, few of us, yes, we do it, but most of the people across India, they are either denying or deferring the treatment.
Especially
How consent will prevent that?
Sir, I have a question. Like I am from forensic medicine, right? I have to do autopsy. When the patient comes to us, we do not know anything. Most of the time, the patient may come after hospital treatment. Many times, the patient or the person comes even without attending, going to the hospital. Let's say road traffic accident. Person dies on the road and is brought straight to us. Now we don't know what is the status of the person, right? So we are at an added risk. When you are operating, you at least do HIV positive.
Problem of consent.
Sir, that's what I'm saying.
Precautions are
Yeah.
there.
What I want to know is, at that time, should we do an HIV positive or absolutely not?
See,
couple of issues I want to just.
Yeah.
I am going to play the other side that consent is necessary. Now let's try and look at it in a slightly different manner. The first thing which everybody was reporting, I write this RBD, he said I put inverted ribbon. What does that essentially mean to us? It means
we are identified.
it means there is stigma which is continuing for HIV infections as well, right? Now, otherwise I would not have found any reason. You write diabetes all the time as diabetes, but you don't write HIV.
How many times there is leprosy? 1 second.
Right?
Even after 40 years or 50 years, do we write down leprosy still on the paper?
No, you may choose one. No, if
Yeah.
you say Hansen, it
X.
is okay. You write as Hansen, but for HIV you don't have any alternative. The reason is social stigma continues to be there, and which all of us perceive. And then I am saying at the same time, I don't need consent. What are we trying to tell? No, if there is so much of social stigma, then we need to worry whether that individual is prepared to develop his own strategies to ensure that that stigma doesn't affect him in the worst way. Now let me try and look at it in a slightly different manner. First it was consent, right? Then suddenly it became informed consent. Consent is overarching, perhaps an issue. But then we suddenly said informed consent is vital. Why are we saying informed consent? We understand what is consent, but we also recognize that taking mere consent as a procedure has very little value, right? So we want to provide that individual with lot of information about the disease And there is no reason why we should say no to it. Because we know we can't be compared with US. In US, everybody knows about HIV. They are fairly well literate. Every person can read any kind of handout that is provided to them. But look at India, you find that even if I develop an English template for fact sheet about HIV, I don't know, even if I develop it in Marathi, you won't be able to administer the same in Bombay. You would have large number of people who will not be even able to read anything or understand even from pictures. So essentially, informedness of consent suddenly became a vital issue. And why do we think it is important? It is important because even if you test an individual, it forces you, by merely taking informed consent, it forces you to provide health education on that particular issue, which otherwise you will never do it. And last point that I would say, consent is vital mainly because you are invading privacy of that individual. Today you are saying, I am not taking consent for other things and therefore I don't need to do it. But I think it is a shortcut that is convenient to us where we try to say, oh, I have plenty of load, patient load with me. I don't have time to discuss anything with the patient. We are treating every patient as a trash then at that time, which is something which is not correct. Despite all kinds of resistance, HIV at least brought one good thing in health sector, and that is counselors cadre. Now today counselors are there. Actually speaking, if you actually look at that issue, you need counseling on every issue in health as such, in whatever diseases or health conditions that we talk about. So far, we were doing it only for HIV. But to me, if I withdraw consent, you won't have a counselor's cadre. You will continue to have a gap of lack of knowledge, so much between lay population and medical fraternity that we will not achieve our own objectives of creating, let's say, health literate population. And that's not going to come so easily unless you would have informed consent as a procedure.
Wouldn't it be paradoxical when we are saying universal screening has to be done?
But that doesn't.
And suppose if we want that HIV should be treated as a mainstream, in the mainstream rather than special entity.
I'm not saying.
Then will it not be a paradox?
No. I'm not saying that at all. I am saying you are not administering consent for other diseases is a wrong thing that you are doing.
Yeah, actually,
I am not saying that you don't do consenting for other procedures. You should. Ideally, you should. I think it is my body. I have every right to know what you are going to do with my body. You are taking my blood out or whatever test you are doing. I need to know why am I taking, what is the result of that particular testing.
That's also universal consent.
No,
Consent then, like for all.
so now we are looking at no consent, then informed consent, and I would go one step beyond is well-informed consent. In informed consent, we just informing patient is also trying to know something, all the consequences, etc. But sometimes we need to also tell person to whom to disclose the disease status or not, because by disclosing themselves, they create discrimination against themselves. They go to medical establishment. Initially, they were not. Now everybody goes and tells that I am HIV positive and I need dental treatment. So the moment they tell, they are creating discrimination for themselves. Number one. Number two is extra charges. So I think what Ganga says is that this consent, informed consent or well-informed consent is important till the time our community is well informed and our community is not going to act in a reverse way or in a different way or trying to exploit the situation. If our community is prepared to manage HIV positive or negative in the same way, no cost difference, no room difference, no care difference, no return note difference, then fine. But that's the reason sometimes it is difficult to educate the highest educated class and convince that class. That is more important. And that is the reason that we require still consent or informed consent in HIV. Otherwise, and secondly, a lot of patients are now coming and asking, "ये test आप क्यों कर रहे हो?" So we need to inform why LFT is important. So ultimately, for each and every test, we are taking consent or giving information, and then he is deciding. Or why you are doing viral load after 6 months, why you are doing CD4 again. And sometimes they read also on Google said now CD4 is not important. Monitor patient by viral load. They said, sir, CD4 is not important, why you are doing? So a lot of times they are also well informed diagnosis and they know certain things. I think we need to evolve on certain issue and create a good atmosphere for patients with HIV, which may take longer time because of the prejudicial stigma attached to sex outside marriage. And that is going to continue in our society maybe for one more generation. I don't know how long.
I'll just accept and agree what Dr. Ganga sir as well as Dr. Girada sir has said. I'll just answer your question of the postmortem and the autopsy. See, it's not only you that you are faced with such things. We are also faced because we don't know the status when we are treating. So the best part is to take a universal precaution. So that point doesn't apply for the consent and doing the testing. Secondly, what you were talking about universal access and universal testing. And you said how to go about it. Yes, we have to go for a consent in that situation also, and that has already paid us in PPT city. We are doing a sort of, in a group we are doing a universal testing. And we have succeeded in that. So that can be definitely.
But that we are not yet we have consent for that.
Yes, absolutely. For PPT city program, whatever we are doing, the testing, I think, Ganga sir, we are taking consent for that. Yes, yes, absolutely.
Then what they do,
Information.
you provide information. Those who
Very
want to
important.
ask questions or those who want to opt out
Yeah.
are provided an opportunity to go and have one-to-one discussion with the counselor, where they could opt out if they want.
Most
So-
important thing is the post-test counseling. That is the most important thing. Whether you consent test or not, but if the test comes positive, the post-test counseling linkage to the healthcare system. That is the most important part. That
Yeah,
has to be there.
so we have to have a pretest consent as well as post-test. That has to be done when we are going in for universal one. And I think we are not ready. India is not ready for doing HIV testing without consent, because you know all those things. Denial, deferrals, whatever we have just discussed, it is there and it is going to be there.
I want to add one more point. Currently also there is a system of consent. Has the patient choice? They go to hospital and pre-surgery all the tests are done. If the person says, I don't want to get this test done, surgery is not done. Where is the choice to the patient? He cannot opt out. In all private hospitals, by admission, default they are doing all the tests, including HIV. Not only that, when I am referring a patient is HIV positive, still they do HIV test or hospital policy. And then I am saying positive. If I say negative, then you doubt. Dr. Gilada's patient cannot be negative. We have done another test. But when I am saying this patient is positive, why you are doing the test? Hospital policy. Then they do Western blot. Then last week in one hospital in Calcutta hospital, they did viral load on 2 occasions in 10 days time. CD4 on 2 occasions in 10 days time. We don't know what is the policy. So patient has no choice. So I think as a house we should decide that apart from HIV management, even outside HIV management for HIV positive patients, there has to be some rights and privileges which they are not enjoying, and the moment they are shown as positive, there are overt way of charging extra to that person. Hardly there will be 10% of the hospitals or doctors who are not charging extra anything for HIV positive. Otherwise, नहीं हमारा कुछ नहीं, मैं कुछ नहीं लेता हूँ, लेकिन वो सर्जिकल सूट लगता है, ये लगता है, चार्ज एक्स्ट्रा. ग्लोव्स बॉक्स, मास्क बॉक्स, वो 15% surcharge. Sir, for other patients there is no surcharge, 15% surcharge. In suburbs in Bombay, there are other ways of charging. Or they say HIV positive means you have to take entire room. Means I cannot put another patient in your room. So you are charging double. Then you are charging surcharge. So ultimately, by disclosing that he is positive or by finding out that he is positive, they are making money.
Do they do it for hepatitis C and B also? They don't do that. Hepatitis B and C.
I will give you an example of a group of gynecologists I was addressing. And they said that, I said, why you are charging extra for HIV positive? Because we are taking risk. I said, what risk you are taking? No, because we are doing this. I said, how many of you are vaccinated for hepatitis B? 50% of them. How many of you are revaccinated after 10 years? Hardly 1 or 2. I said, you don't get vaccinated where it is costing only 3 doses will cost 100 rupees, and then you are charging patient 50% extra, 25% extra, 100% extra because you are taking risk. What risk you are taking? And then you are asking question, where is the AIDS vaccine coming? Means the vaccine which is available you don't take, and you are asking a question. So I think medical community also knows how to squeeze people, how to make money. Initially they don't give treatment or they deny treatment, and once they understand that अगर मैं दुकान तो कोई देगा treatment, चलो extra charge करो. And now, so long as person is virally suppressed, what is the risk to a doctor? What is the risk to a doctor? Huh?
For that I will deny. There is still a risk.
I think we are going on the different issues which are not related with consent. No, there are few things which I will tell. One which is most important to my mind is consent for any sexually transmitted infection is absolutely vital. The reason is tomorrow a patient could say, oh, I was not informed, I don't know that I was HIV infected, I got married to somebody, I had unprotected sex with somebody and I passed off that infection. Is that a good scenario to see? No. Somebody said why Hep B and Hep C are not included. It is perhaps that the drive of those who were working in the field of Hep B and Hep C was purely clinical. No? They never had that patient-related objectives in their mind. But just imagine if I have Hep C and my wife is Hep C negative, you did not administer any consent, you did not speak with me, I passed it off to my wife. Who is responsible for all this? It is merely my unwillingness to speak about that issue which results into increasing reservoirs of different infections. Especially with sexually transmitted infections, you need to be absolutely clear. And if you ask me, I think today's world is about accountability. Accountability can only come if the person knows what is happening with that individual. If you don't do that, you are no longer accountable to anybody. The patient doesn't understand ABC of that particular thing, whether he was tested or not tested, what is its implication. Most often we grumble when we manage patients that the patient is unable to tell you which diseases he suffered from in the past. He would say, I was hospitalized 3 times. Some surgery was done. What was removed? He says, I don't know what was removed. Is that a good thing to happen? I think we are dealing with bodies, but they have human mind, and we have certain responsibilities which we need to discharge by informing the patient what's happening with your body. Why am I doing this? And that accountability has to come. We want everybody to become accountable when it comes to others. But when we think of ourselves, we believe we discharge our duties even in good faith in the best possible manner. Please remember, law does not recognize so easily good faith unless you end up into arguing so often that whatever I did was in good faith for that individual. Why not have good documentation? Why should I not speak with that patient and just get away with that? And we are not saying that you yourself have to do it. I mean, there could be counselors, let them do their work, but you need to have such things in place.
Unfortunately, there are 2 or 3 things. See, it's very easily because that you get counselors here. I think not everybody in practice has a counselor. In prior practice, maybe if you are only in particular institutions and you have a counselor, that's possible. People who run at 5 places and who at 5 places and is sitting at 1 place, 2nd place, 3rd place, 4th place, don't really find it very easy, convenient to find a counselor. Counselors sometimes themselves, their knowledges are sometimes very, very variable. We are talking of major city here. It happens much worse in the smaller towns and smaller cities and villages. It's impossible to get, even doctor there, it's very impossible to get a counselor. So I think we are talking, sometimes we are talking in a big setup where it's possible to have a counselor. Counselor is not easy. When I'm doing an STD testing, I do a VDRL, I do other testing, and we do talk to the patients. Not like we always had those STDs, and they always had, especially if you do a VDRL positive syphilis, there's always been a big name. There's always been a big name. But there has never been really an issue anybody has asked for consent. Nobody talked about consent in those issues.
Why are we talking in the same thing here? If we really require it, we require it there also. The HIV testing after consent, yeah, before that also, if you are doing it, you can tell it basically in a situation like that yes, this is a fever which is long standing, we need to investigate. This includes all the testing, including an HIV testing. You talk to that particular person, explain that particular person, these are the issues why you require it, because that can help you treat. The patient fully well knows that by doing that testing, you're not going to charge him more. The patient fully well knows you're not going to run him off to some other place, you're not wanting to manage. It is not just not do a treatment. Your diagnosis, you want to treat him fully, you can treat him fully, and you don't want him to run around and push him from one place to certain place to third place. I think that's a very important aspect, and which is rightly said by most of us, that we shouldn't be really running away from them, we should be actually keeping them close to our heart, not really keeping a distance from them, talking to them as if he is a leper or is going to become an infection of them, which is what sometimes there has been few worries. People have gradually been changing. People when they used to come to me, I used to clearly tell them, once upon a time, there was a time when you used to talk before doing a testing or before doing that, you should talk to the patient 4 times, 5 times, whether to do a particular test or not. The patient's level of awareness have changed and they are changing. We always tell them whom to tell in the family, you take a call. Well, if you are positive, don't go on disclosing to everybody, but whom to tell, you have to decide. I also tell them that there are people who don't want to treat. Yes, there are somebody who can have, as a doctor, I may have a right, I don't want to treat a particular patient. It is his right in a situation like that. If that particular doctor is not taken his precautions, then it is his problem and he doesn't want to treat a particular group of patients. He has all rights not to treat a patient. I can't force him to do everything, that you treat every single patient. So, if he takes a decision, he doesn't want to treat a particular patient, he is not going to treat it. So, when he is going, I tell them, when you are going to a medical person, please inform so that at least he takes precaution. For all other purposes, we tell him that you don't inform at your company place, there is no need to inform them. We don't write down HIV on the paper purely because when he goes back, everybody, if he's a housemaid or a servant, his employer is going to look at it at home or at work, they are going to look at and discriminate against his job. So that is the reason we don't write down HIV or that particular clear diagnosis or whatever on the paper. It's basically to help the person out, not to discriminate against him, but basically to help him out so that others don't discriminate. Your job is not to discriminate yourself, but also see to it that others don't discriminate. And I can't take the whole care of the whole community as such. So the only way is just to help people out, and that is what we try to do. Your consent, whether you take it before, after, or whatever, the issue is you will not discriminate against him. So whether you're doing a test, if it is a young child, 5-year-old child, 10-year-old child, I'm not pediatrician. I don't know how he's going to do it. He will have to do something to talk about it. There is an unmarried person. वो बोलेगा मेरे को क्या HIV का टेस्टिंग मांग रहे हैं? मैं शादी नहीं किया है, मेरे को आप मेरे को शंका कर रहे हैं. शादी जरूरी है. नहीं मेरे को आप शंका करें कि मेरे किधर से जाके आए. So I think all those issues we tell them basically. We talk it for every single person in this situation. We need it. I do not require every single patient, but there are groups where I will require. So if you ask me specifically, yes, patient has to know, and you could, and every single person to have a counselor, I don't think really it's possible. It's major city, major centers, fine, but talking at every single person, and if I may have 10 patients a day or 20 patients a day, if somebody look at 40 and 50 patients a day, and we are going to ask him to have, if he doesn't have a counselor at himself, his own place, he is not going to be able to do counseling. It's impossible. And in a smaller remote town, they see 250 patients. Where do you expect them? I think sometimes we are talking things which are not real.
When it was the HIV start, that time I was on one TV shows and then one question came that body was, he was dead, he was placed on the one place. So 10 feet around that it will pick up because that can cause infection. That was the question. So that is it true? Is it real? So body doctor जहाँ से रखी थी वहाँ का 10 फुट की जगह से खुद के निकाल लिया ताकि should not infection. That was there at that time. अभी जो पेशेंट आते हैं मेरे घर पे एक वन फ्लैट ओनर भाई को लेके आते काम वाले भाई HIV पॉजिटिव है प्लीज ट्रीट. हमारे यहाँ पे एक कपल आता है हस्बैंड वाइफ उसका फादर पॉजिटिव अच्छे से लेके आते 2 साल फादर को लेके आते मदर इन लॉ को लेके आते एक्सेप्टिंग नाउ families and all families are accepting the HIV disease. No one, most of the time, 99% of doctors do not deny operation on that. They may charge extra, is a different story. At least government does not have. So at least at least 90% do not deny the treatment to any HIV positive patient. So that is called that stigmata slowly going down. That's what. So somewhere you have to draw the line. That's what I'm saying. So how many years we have to go for the consent? How many we have to go for? 100 years more, 200 years more. Because of 10 साल पहले USA can do that. When we are going to continue consent for 100 more years, 200 more years, I don't know. So that's why you have to come down somewhere to say that be on the इतना importance मत दो HIV को, that give importance place. ना ज़्यादा curiosity मत करो. If curiosity is increased, then there is more and more this one. If everything is there, patient is routinely test करते हैं, HIV सबका होता है, तो patient won't bother also. ठीक है, मेरा CBC होता है, शुगर होता है, routine testing is not very unusual for everyone. It's a part of the system. So it's okay if I'm doing the HIV testing, I'm doing blood sugar, etc. Part of this one. So I want to say somewhere to go down. When you are going to stop it? That's my question. Or never stop it, the consent information. Thanks.
So legally, if I can add another facet to this discussion.
These people are on the
Legally, the reason why legally mandatory testing is not allowed is because it's a violation of a person's right. When you're mandatorily tested and you still want your right ensured, the other side of the coin is to ensure that the hospital mandatorily treats you despite the outcome of the test.
Right.
So till the law catches up on that side, you cannot say that HIV should be opt-in, opt-out or mandatory. See, for example, if I need an operation done and I have a sugar problem, you give me a test for a sugar problem, you tell me, you know what, get on these meds, let your sugar get controlled, we'll come back for your operation. But if I have HIV and I want to get an operation done and you mandatorily test me for it, lot of hospitals, I think a greater percentage of them, will just tell me we are no longer interested in operating on you. No, sir, the thing is that the idea is changing, but at a very slow rate, because when I did my research, there are actual case studies where they have taken both private and government hospitals. In private, they've taken charitable organizations as well as for-profit organizations. And the general thesis is that mandatory testing, we want mandatory testing to protect ourselves. Even though medically I was informed that the chances of HIV spreading during an operation are minimal. They still want mandatory testing, and most doctors want the right to turn it away if they feel like they cannot ensure that it will not be spread.
The consent will go always for this problem.
It will, sir, because for example, if I have a kidney problem doing an operation on me, it has a direct impact on the operation. It has a direct impact on the outcome.
Not taken
Now,
the consent.
correct me if I'm wrong. No, sir, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm HIV positive, and let's say you're removing my tonsils, it doesn't necessarily impact the outcome of the surgery. Yes, the precautions that the hospital will have to take will be greater to make sure that my blood and my bodily fluids are contained and disposed of properly. But the outcome, health-wise, is not very different. It's just that the burden of care on the hospital
is different.
But sir, is it that much more different than, let's say I had...
See, the patient comes to me for the fitness because the most of the thing. Patient very bad condition, CD4 is 50 for example, I would write that in high chest infection, take care of wait for the operation, wait for 1 or 2 plan ART, get better CD4 count and then operate if time permits. So generally price on that. Because of that, because if chance is very high when patient gets a low CD4 count. So generally they come for the fitness and we just advise that please get a body for the stop heart operation for example. You can wait for 2 or 3 months, so I just add the ART, get his CD4 better, and then I said, I know I can operate. So we don't want reversing one or conditions occur in my case. Patient will operate without HIV. I have got 2 patient and get infected. And then why does the infection control then come to HIV? He goes against the doctor in the court that why you are not tested for HIV. Reverse way of it also happens. It also happens.
Sir, in India, when you come to consent also in India, it's driven by Boehm's law and not by, like in England, by what a patient thinks is reasonable. Now basically Boehm's law leaves it up to the doctor for him to see what is reasonable. Now the doctor, if he feels, depending on the area that he's posted in, depending on the kind of patient that he's treating, he feels that, you know what, you might have HIV depending on your symptoms. Please get it tested. Now we're not saying that you should not ask a patient to get tested. We're just saying it shouldn't be mandatory. Because if the chances of the test being positive and your hospital turning him away, which is a big chance, if you make it mandatory, you're violating his fundamental rights to treatment. It's his right to a life. It's Article 21 being violated.
Do not turn away the patient. That's true law. On the basis
Exactly,
of the
sir. But my point is, till the law catches up on that side of the coin, you cannot say that you don't need counselling, you don't need informed consent.
Counseling will not solve the problem. That's what I'm saying. By taking consent, for example, they could not solve your operation problem. It should be mandated that patient once tested positive, you must take care of that. Whatever you may be there, you cannot deny.
So that's utopia. It should, you're right, in the ideal scenario, you should test every patient for HIV so that you can control the disease.
Yeah.
And you should ensure that every hospital still treats the patient.
Yeah, that's
That is what,
That's most
that's the end
important.
game.
I have been in hospitals where 10 years back and 15 years back, patients were being thrown out. And I literally fought with those management. This is 15 years back, I'm not saying no. There have been 15 years back, I was fought with those management. Literally fought with those management. I talked with even the highest doctor at that time, they were the medical director there, in night at 10 o'clock. Arguing with them for 10 minutes. They talk to me, I talk to the trustee, I say, I'll talk to the trustee. So I had those sort of fights. But issues are so same the hospitals are now willing to manage those patients. They may treat them at the last patient this is surgical pain, last patient of the day. These patients treated in the general ward, patients are treated without any discrimination. On paper, there is nowhere written down at the board side that he is HIV positive. No boards. There is no boards. They are treated in general wards.
Excuse me, sir.
exceptions are there.
I'm not saying it's not.
Just one
Exceptions are there.
What you are talking is exception. You are coming from the urban areas. I am looking into the rural areas most of the times, and this thing occurs till day. And it is not what she says is absolutely right. And I have already said, are you ready for that? That is what is important. We are not. And for that, consent is going to stay there. It has to stay till we are ready for that. Another question, the answer to your question, that somebody is seeing 250 patients, somebody is for 40 patients a day. Every patient is not advising HIV test. Maybe 3 or 4, and a doctor is the best counselor. And if he has to do a 3 or 4 tests a day, I don't think it's going to be a burden. If you think it is a burden, refer the patient to ICTC. We do have a ICTC at Taluka level. So that is not an issue. We have to get the consent, and it is going to stay, and it has to stay.
Yeah, I also endorsing Nandu. If doctor has no time for counseling, whatever number of patients here, you say I will not manage. There is no force or there is no compulsion on you to see so many patients and then deny their basic rights and privileges. That is number one. Number two, time is required only for one time. You don't have to counsel every time that patient. So first time, whenever you are doing the test, that first time counseling is very important. Either you do it or you get it done through either counselor or in ICTC. Number two, Dr. Bazari was asking how long the testing should continue. So long as society is not prepared to accept HIV positive person as any other person. Till that time it will continue. It may take 1 generation, it may take 2 generations, it will continue. Thirdly, they were saying that he was giving classical example of people are so caring, they bring father, they bring wife or servant also. But there are people who are not doing that kind of care. And traditionally laws are for those minority of people who get discriminated, minority of people whose rights and privileges are challenged. So, just because majority of the people or maybe half of the people are caring very well, it doesn't mean that there should not be laws and privileges or any rights for those which have been discriminated. And lastly, yes, discrimination is going down, but it is still there. And it is sometimes overtly, sometimes covertly. For example, in some rooms, they will keep a gloves box and mask box. At the moment HIV positive person is there, that box is there. So it is for 1 or 2 or 3 diseases. So ultimately, in this circle, they come to know that he is HIV positive or hepatitis B positive. At some places, they say isolation for some registered. So you can see the patient only from glass in 5-star hospitals here. So ultimately, we medical people, we are taking advantage of being at a little bit higher position, and we are violating knowingly rights and privileges of other people. And that we need to fight out. If it is not going to be fight out, then there will be law and then the people will be tried for that. It is possible that only out of 100, 1 or 2 people will be tried. Despite having the laws of consent, etc., or they are discriminated, out of 10, 20 patients discriminated, only one may fight. But for that one fight will be difficult. Despite going, many times I told them, तुम जाके झगड़ा करो, कुछ है तो मैं खड़ा हूँ. I will come to court and I will give. But still people don't fight. So at least I have given them information that what has been done with them is wrong. They have been discriminated. The test was done without their knowledge. Despite that, people don't want to fight. That is their problem. But so long as there are rights and privileges of them and some laws to protect them, at least that is the one thing which will be taking care of them.
Is it something where this sort of doing it, is it going to be similar to what happens is like, तुम मेरे को रीजन बोला, तुम मेरे को मंकी बोला, वैसे करके मैं केस डालेगा. Is it? Aren't we going to encourage those sort of things as well?
No,
नहीं सर absolutely.
अगर आपने बोला है,
I'm just trying to say that.
नहीं दो तीन चीजें ये बोलता हूँ. I think I'm little concerned. No, most often what is it that we are indirectly revealing as of now? One, we continue to have scare of acquiring HIV occupationally, which is very sad that we are worried even at this point in time. We continue to see high discrimination that is occurring. But when we are arguing this, I think we are going beyond the issue that we have to discuss, and that is an issue related to consent. Consent is not for preventing discrimination. Consent has a different implication. That I am, like she used a term called as mandatory testing. No? Mandatory testing, you can do it without taking consent. But when can you do it? You can do it only if it is for the larger goods of the society. No? Now, where is the larger good? No? When I am saying that I would like to follow the same principle as mandatory testing, is there any rationale in saying I won't take consent? That would be incorrect. Let me put, she gave an example of diabetes. No, you offer care to that person who has diabetes. I would argue further and say no infectious disease, perhaps which is like a chronic persistent infection, will ever be able to come out of this consent clause. Because for these diseases, let's look at HIV, let's look at Hep B, let's look at Hep C. No, you would find that the person looks normal, person has that infection, person can pass off that infection to others. Now in such circumstances, I would not be worried about TB either, because for TB, everybody will come to know that he has TB. But what about these diseases? The onus of not passing that infection has also got to be equally shared by the patient. So prevention of infection continues to be an overriding factor for consenting. And please understand one thing, consent, when you offer pre-test consent, you're also required to discuss about prevention, required to discuss about treatment of those diseases as a part of it. You also need to think in a slightly different way. Tomorrow, let's look at somebody, there was some kind of a scare of Ebola, and we suddenly said that we don't want to take consent in Ebola, individuals who are being tested for Ebola. Would we be doing justice? Absolutely not. No, suddenly if somebody comes to know that he has a disease like HIV, why is it that I am required to have consent? One reason is, if you look at the definition of counseling, it is to ensure that the person copes with that illness well, understands one's own responsibilities, and you help that patient to take right kind of decision in given circumstances by discussing risks and benefits. If this is the case, how am I going to bypass these infected individuals who will never ever show any other symptom? They could be just asymptomatic and they could just go ahead with the same. The third issue which is important is, please don't reverse certain things which have happened well in our society. The most important one was Manipur is the only state which perhaps came out some 12 or 13, more than that, perhaps another 16 years back. They have come out with a legislation which says, if you want to offer HIV test, it is not only consent, counseling is also mandatory. You know, they say pre-test, post-test and counseling has to be done. Now, if I reverse that, what will happen? Let me give, perhaps I am generalizing a little more than it is required, but I can assure you that there may be some element. I don't have data on that particular issue. All of us know syphilis. We used to have very high prevalence of syphilis. If you look at the earlier studies, it used to say 6% of pregnant women have syphilis in 1974 and 75. Today what has happened? Because of HIV programming, because of the consent related issues, even syphilis prevalence rate has come down so much that most of the STIs are almost going, because you are offering every sort of advice through consenting process. No? When you say HIV, when you talk of STIs, you suddenly find all of them are disappearing. Why did this happen? Because I am educating the community at the same time. I cannot forget those who may be HIV, who may be negative for that disease, because I am offering an opportunity for them to adopt healthy lifestyles through consenting process. Because consenting is not merely taking signature. Taking consent doesn't necessarily mean you may not be legally prosecuted for whatever outcomes that are there. This is more of a progressive kind of approach, that I would treat every person who comes to me for seeking medical consultation as equal human being, rather than somebody who has just got to receive whatever I have offered. I think we have to bridge that gap between a recipient and a provider if we are to provide health care.
Just want to add one line. When we talk about consent can be for two things. One is blood bank. In blood bank, you are trying to safeguard the interest of recipient. Possibly pregnant mother, where there is a child, right of the child of fetus. The fetus need to be protected. In public health, for example, at the airport, they were looking at temperature of passengers arriving. So you had no choice of consent, whether temperature could be taken or not. So it is in public health that if you are carrying some infection, you are at risk to a public health. In only those kind of cases, consent can be forward. But otherwise, as Ganga says, consent is required.
In a patient with prolonged pyrexia,
Okay.
You need an HIV testing. You try to take an informed consent. He refuses. You not do the testing.
No. Now there are two things. Consent is in a healthy person, and consent where you are suspecting it is HIV-related illness. For example, oral thrush or herpes zoster, or you think meningitis is related to HIV. You tell them that this could be related to HIV. The problem with medical community is that I don't say that all are not taking proper history. Any kind of diagnosis or reaching a suspected diagnosis is based on three things. One is taking proper history, proper medical examination, and then the test. If your history is suggesting that the history is contributed to HIV or hepatitis B or hepatitis C. Number two, the signs symptoms are in that favor. I am talking about clinical scenario. Then you tell them that because of this history and so, I suspect this disease and therefore I need to do this test. Number one. Number two, you are charging that person. If you are doing free, then there are some other issues. Because, for example, all the pre-surgical tests, they are charging heavily, 2,000 rupees or 1,000 rupees or 2 or 3 tests, which is not costing even 200 rupees. So when you are charging a person, you are not even asking his permission, you are not doing counseling, you are not taking his consent. It is ridiculous.
So I agree. What I am saying is, that in an informed consent, patient also has the right to refuse, right?
Right, so no, let me try and answer part of your question.
Yes.
No, you said the person has pyrexia of unknown.
He has the right to refuse or not?
Agreed. Please remember, when you say a person refuses to do test, what does it mean? I think you are becoming too medicalized in our approaches.
Yes.
No? When somebody says no, what does it mean? The person does not know what is that disease, or the person has certain misbeliefs, or person has certain fears which need to be handled in the first place. Otherwise, why would I say no if you suddenly come to me just now, I had angina, and then you explain to me what does this angina mean. I would love to get my angiography done, but if you don't tell anything, what decision can I make? So consent is a process which informs the individual to take right decision.
I agree. Even there also in angina, you explain the patient fully. He still refuses that I don't want
But
to.
that's fine.
But the same way, in an HIV patient also is likely to happen. It's not that you are going to be able to convince every single thing.
No. Please remember, when you say informed consent, there is a strong element of voluntariness in that. So I might still refuse. No, it's like, let's say, you told me just now, there is going to be an earthquake and all of us are going to die. Everybody starts running and I refuse to run. Then that's my choice. I don't think I want to run because everything is going to
So
collapse.
in the situation like that, you are even allowing his spouse or his family member to have a risk.
No, but
Sir,
I don't know.
I'll answer your question, sir. Sir, I'll answer your question. First thing, how many times it happens?
It's not that it doesn't happen.
One thing, and that is the exact situation where you need a counselor. And if you can tell about the disease, what are the outcomes, what are the treatment, what is the learning, everything you explain. And then hardly any patient will say no. Nowadays, sir, the doctors are referring patients to me not for HIV but those who are refusing to do HIV. And my counselor is really doing a fantastic job. And so that is the situation where really it needs, the consenting is really needed there only. And they will never refuse it if you tell them about their own problems and you discuss about their own issues. It never happens.
Can there be only counseling and no consent? Only counseling, bed-based counseling, post-tech, whatever it is. But no.
सर अपने यहाँ पे ऐसे लोग हैं ना, हम बोल देंगे हमने तो काउंसलिंग कर लिया।
वो तो ठीक मार देंगे।
दूसरा जवाब बोलता हूँ। Do you know most of the colleges, most of the tertiary care hospitals, you will find there are so many clinical trials going. No? The consent forms, if you look at those clinical trials, they are 7 pages, 8 pages long consent form. How good are we? How ethical are we? Do we actually think that my patient knows what has gone through? But it's a process. No? Hopefully, we will change our practice. If there was no consent to be taken, even for participation in clinical trial, we would have treated them as guinea pigs. No? Saying that we are doing it in good faith, there is no drug available.
That's why audiovisual has.
Sir, this side you have not said anything till now, so please.
That's what I was
My
wondering.
point is
I
that
wanted to
we
hear.
cannot reach to 100% of your community.
Yeah.
One particular thing is informed consent protecting us? If yes, then we should not discuss too much. I mean, if it is in our favor, forget about doing good to the community, what we tell in life. But the best thing is if you do counseling, which is an art. Some people are born with that gift and people can become master with practice, and we should do it. Or you should hire, if you have 150 patients in your OPD, you can always employ some people as a counselor and they do their job, and most of the people do not deny to go for that consent of test. If somebody has not to follow, then even in Ahmedabad's government hospital, BJ Medical College Hospital, if we send some patient who are HIV positive, they give their consent, they are tested positive, they don't operate. They just say today blood pressure is 80, get an ECG tomorrow, get an anesthetic. Like for 1 month they will not operate, even the fractures. Like, what do? You can't help. But So if somebody not solve the problem,
That's
one thing is, what I'm saying is, you cannot think of all 100% right, and you cannot take responsibility of every patient who denies. If last time we discussed that, if a patient comes to a surgeon and asks, "Are you positive?" You test yourself, and then I'll get operated by you. And if he has a right to deny, no, I cannot undergo my testing. Similarly, patient has. So instead of going in that, because since centuries we are discussing this issue. But one thing is that consent protects us, informed consent. So we should go. And once in a while, if somebody is taken in the
code, then
What you are saying is right. What I was just talking about major cities and smaller places. Everywhere people don't have bases and people can consider. That's what I'm saying. One. And second thing is the same thing is people at one place, managing at one place is easy. When he's running around at 5 places, it's not easy.
That is our problem.
That's our problem. But it's most of the people in the
That does not mean that you
I
can.
goes in favor of consent because not only the prevention part, but you are giving all the information regarding the treatment options available. That patient have a full normal lifespan. Then many patients they are not aware of it. So if you go on a consent process, you are also providing this information regarding the treatment options available, whether it is government or private sector. So I think consent is best.
So these are the originals when we started was the same way. But I'm talking about the days are changing and forcing informed consent on everybody is not easy. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So legally informed consent protects you from liability. Because you're saying I've informed you, I've counseled you, now it's up to you. I have done my reasonable care as a doctor. Now let's say they consent, they take the test, you're doubly protected. If they don't consent, and they say no, I still don't want to take the test, that's where your universal precautions kick in. You're expected to treat every patient like they have HIV when you're doing a procedure or anything. Which is where how you save yourself an indemnity even if they choose not to take the test.
That comes when it's a surgical matter, like for surgery level. He says that patient has a fever for 2 months and now strongly suspecting that some disease which is exclusively.
Sir, for your liability.
But then you can't help.
Sir,
You can't help.
we are running short on time also. So I'll just summarize all the things. Like whatever discussion we have had till now. What I have had.
Just want to add one.
इसके ऊपर
Just fine. Yeah, okay. Take it. Then I'll.
He's surprised. Including.
No, my part was only pre-employment consent testing when nobody is taking the consent. That is the thing.
There's a couple of things which I would say. Since you are thinking of summarizing the whole thing, there were 2-3 things which may need some correction. No, when Dr. Gilada was speaking about mandatory testing and he said blood donors, no, second was pregnant women, they are no longer, no, even for blood donors, you have to refer after initial reactivity and there are plans that everything would be done even at blood bank itself. So why am I telling this? The reasons for exclusion are getting lesser and lesser in terms of offering consent to people. You would not have much of choices excepting when the patient is comatose and you think it is HIV. He is in ICU in no position to provide you consent. No, those kinds of situations are fine where mandatory testing could be done. But rest of the places, perhaps it's not something which would ever happen as of now.
But there are also patient
And-
comatose, you have to take consent from the relatives or it's.
Relatives consent.
You can take if it is a legal guardian. It is LAR, no? Legal. But most often you will find that you may even not have LAR. So in good faith you are allowed there. So that good faith clause works in very small instances. And please remember, when we say in good faith, it is always challengeable. I may disagree with madam, I don't remember her name. Consent is not for protecting a provider. I can always challenge in court of law. You have given me, let's say, clinical trial person comes with consent. He has signed everything, but he will say, though I signed over it, I did not know. He never told me what is this. No, so comprehension of consent is also vital.
Informed consent. is
Yeah.
what-
Yeah.
Right.
Just 2 points to add. What he says is good faith. Suppose you are talking about a comatose patient. You have not taken his consent because he is comatose. You have not taken family's consent because you thought it is in good faith or good intention. And suddenly that person comes out to be HIV positive, patient dies. And you have written somewhere or it leaks out to the insurance company. The family sues you that without consent you tested and my insurance claim has not been passed because of you. Then what will you do? So ultimately you require, if person is unable to give consent in the laws also, you have to take consent from any of the relative of the person. You cannot do forego that. Number two, is also depends on constitutional steps after you have taken consent. What are you going to do? If those steps are going to discriminate that person or his dead body or his treatment, then that is wrong. And thirdly, all of us we are seeing in our practice, if we are well-informed person, you have taken proper consent, you manage the patient. Patient comes and says that साहब इतने डॉक्टर्स गए किसी ने इतने बात किया ही. So actually it is in our interest also to talk to person properly, to take consent and to explain everything.
When false positive report comes, it's a lot of problem. If informed consent is not there, and still we are getting 3 or 4 false positive in screening test. And our habit is of declaring the person as a having disease based on screening.
Sir, I'll just summarize. Based on our discussion, I think what I felt was that we can divide the whole issue into 2 parts. One is where the person requires HIV testing for his treatment, and one is when the person is healthy and we are taking it, let's say for surgery or something like that. So when we are doing it for his treatment, I think I don't think there is any controversy regarding that. It has to be taken like that. The test has to be done. If the patient says okay, if he does not say, then we will not do that. I think there is no controversy regarding that. Yeah.
I think there is no point in dividing the two issues. It has to be, if the HIV consent has to be done, it has to be done with the consent.
Sir, what I'm dividing is say when the patient because the problem arises when the person is not he is not a high risk person or something, and still we want to do it, say before surgery. So that is where the problem comes. When the patient is
HIV testing is already, as per the guidelines, is not allowed.
but still it's been done, and it's done in every case, practically every case.
99%
It is done.
98%
should not endorse that.
So that's why what I say is that when the patient requires it for his treatment, then I think everybody is clear that
For the HIV, not for surgery.
not for surgery, patients.
As per NACO guidelines, government guidelines, no routine testing is done pre-surgery.
But it is practically done almost 100%. That is a different
And
thing.
understand this way, most hospitals refuse that we will not operate without the test.
Without the test,
It's
yeah.
not taken to the theatre. What do we do?
And sir, secondly is when we doing it, say as you were saying. So based on the discussion, I can say few points that I have noted that we can suggest for future. Like I'll just just enumerate one by one, and then we can have just one word or one sentence from all of us on this. One I felt was that it's like we can do the test mandatorily or whenever the patient comes, and if the patient explicitly asks about it, and then we discuss it with the patient. Is that like acceptable thing to be done or not?
No question of mandate.
Like when the patient comes, like we do baseline CBC, like we do baseline blood sugar.
Not possible.
Sir, your views.
I think, see, what happens is, unfortunately, whatever I see, this patient has been referred by gynec, by general surgeon or somebody. He wants to take it to the theatre.
Just एक और mic
Everybody can hear. I think everybody can hear, is it?
उनको नहीं सुनाई दे रहा.
I can be louder still.
उनको नहीं सुनाई दे रहा.
I you want it recording.
एक और mic हो सकता है बोलिए.
So, people,
ये चल रहा है. This
is it audible still? Yeah?
Recording है.
वो रिकॉर्डिंग है सर.
So, what I feel is, let us say this way, the surgeon refers the patient, or orthopedic surgeon, or general surgeon, gynec, he is wanting to send the patient for surgery. Wherever he is operating, those places they are not operating without an HIV testing. What can he do? He can't do anything about it. He will have to do a testing. Because the patient, what he was asking whether we should do compulsory or not in a situation like that.
No.
So can I?
No, nothing. No question of mandate.
So the person that refuses, the operation theatre refuses, he will not operate.
Instead of
Sir, legally the hospitals are on wrong side and they can be sued. Even though 99% it is happening, if 1% sues, they will be sued.
But till that particular time, that patient operation will not be done. What do you do?
No. Let us go back to one situation which we had discussed earlier. private hospitals or any private organization can frame its own rules under law.
Focus kar.
No? So I can't do anything with respect to somebody who is outside the public sector. No? Public sector cannot refuse at any cost, for whatever reasons. That is number one. So those issues are slightly twisted and I would not be worried about it. The second issue which I would say is there is see, all of us know there is something called a 90-90-90 strategy. Now you want to detect more number of people. Should the summary reflect on who should be tested and who should not be? Perhaps that's a dynamically changing approach. Today, there are multiple publications which are coming that if you test in ICUs, all the patients, perhaps you will find more number of HIV infected individuals whom you can link to services. So that objective is changing the approaches to test, and provider initiated testing is already approved. Provider initiated PITC is already approved. So we don't know when we say this person should not be tested today, tomorrow it could be completely redundant kind of approach as such. And third, I would say, our summary should also include that consenting should be done for all infectious, sexually transmitted infections, wherever the risk that the person can pose could perhaps be enhanced by the nature of the disease itself.
Sir, if I can interject at this point, you said that it's more twisted when it comes to private sector. You're right, private hospitals can make their own rules, but everyone is bound by the law of the land. And if the law says you cannot mandatorily test, and if the law also says that a patient's right to life includes the right to medical services, that means even a private hospital is liable when it does not treat.
Yeah, so the aspect is the hospitals have a rule to do the test. They don't refuse the surgery. They do the surgery, but they still want an HIV test. They will do it at the last of the whole situation. That's what they do.
No, do they underline and say that will not discriminate the person financially, socially, medically?
So even those hospitals where they are not discriminating against them.
No, I'm not saying they are doing or not. Will they certify or underwrite that we are not going to discriminate person financially, socially, medically?
Even if they give in writing, how will you ensure that they are following it?
There is no way to ensure that. That is one.
That is the biggest problem in our country.
I think the only solution for that kind of thing is in a bigger cities, we have HIV friendly services, and patient has a right to go from there. Okay, you say I will do compulsory all the tests. Otherwise, if patient is refusing to test, you are not doing surgery. Patient goes from X to Y. And we should know amongst ourselves which are HIV friendly hospitals, HIV friendly surgeons, HIV friendly anesthetists. And then that will be done. And we know that. We have certain gynecologists, we have certain surgeons, they are not charging 1 rupee extra for the sake of HIV. And ultimately those hospitals will fall in line.
The first point which you have taken, I think we should not go against the law. We should not discriminate regarding the public and private. Law is law for everybody. How to implement it? So we have to issue the guidelines in favor of you are having a hospital, you are having your laws, your HIV testing is mandatory. Okay, do it, but do it with the informed consent.
That could be right.
That's the best.
I agree with that.
And so what we should strengthen is only the provider initiative HIV testing. That's all. But that should be with the consent. It's very simple. So don't discriminate the private and public sector.
So about this.
No, just one request for everybody. You are discussing issues around law. We are not going to discuss how the law should be implemented, because then we are wasting our time.
Yeah. That's fine.
The topic was whether we should have consent or not. And secondly, the thing was, can India afford pre-test consent for HIV? That is what the issue is. And yes, so because see, the problem is, I'll just take 2 minutes and give an example. It's not regarding HIV, but one of the office boy in my department, he said that he had pain in abdomen and करीब 2 साल पहले दिखाया था डॉक्टर साहब को, तो उस समय एक्सरे में पथरी निकली थी और then I asked him what happened and he said कुछ नहीं, वो डॉक्टर साहब ने इलाज किया था, मेरे मुंह से बाहर आ गई थी. See that it मुंह से बाहर आ गई, renal stone. Now I don't, and then see this is the kind of literacy level, and this person is 10th pass and not totally illiterate person. Okay, so like that is so that is the kind of patient we have to deal with. So we have to see all those things, but as it is said that like consent has to be taken. Now another thing that requires is the role of this counseling. Like we had a big discussion about pre-test and post-test counseling and all those things. Now another suggestion that I can give is to have the test only after pre-test and post-test counseling. Without that, no testing to be done. Can that be acceptable and feasible or not? Without counseling or no testing without counseling, then the role of consent does not arise. Because once you have done the counseling,
Counseling is a consent.
yeah, counseling itself is a consent. Like after counseling, the patient is coming.
First step of consent.
First thing has to be counseling, and then after counseling, the patient will decide whether he wants to get the test done or not. So like
It has to be in writing.
yeah, consent will be in writing, is always in writing, but after
What does initial?
after counseling.
There are
But consent has to be also after
There
counseling.
are printed forms nowadays.
It's already there, that
Counseling
thing is
and
already
consent.
there, there has to be a pre-test counseling.
Sir, it is there, but the thing is that if
Public
do
hospital
we,
that. Public hospital that. It's already ICT is there, the forms are there, we fill the form. And we have a call for voluntary testing also. Without form also, this voluntary they go and test. Without counseling, ICT is there. It's because they know what they are testing. They go voluntarily, they test themselves.
But still they do counseling there, even VCTC.
But I think let's look at this way. Say, if I go to a public hospital in Maharashtra, it will give you a form in Marathi. And Marathi, even if you ask me, I understand Marathi, I can read Marathi, but so many questions are reading through it. It's so difficult for me.
sir, sitting here, we cannot discuss logistics.
So,
that is not.
So that's what I'm saying. It could be as a form, or it could be even as an audio-visual consent, and you record it.
No.
Yeah, the thing we are discussing here is regarding consent. How it is to be taken, whether it is audio, video or written, that is for the individual place or government to decide. That we cannot decide sitting here.
We have already.
Yeah.
We can give suggestion that informed consent is simple rather than written consent.
फॉर्म पे लिखा होता है इन्फॉर्म कंसेंट के उसे फॉर्म पे ऐसे लिखा
See,
होता है
all these are self strategies.
Yeah.
So what we take, sign or something, but ultimately you have to
Yeah.
follow law.
Yeah.
You have to also see that the person is benefited, patient is benefited,
Because-
not violating their rights.
Because even right now, like even in like PHCs, there are PHCs which give thrombolytic therapy in PHC or in a small towns. Now that they get through the government, they get the money and everything. It's an audio-visual consent which is recorded on video. I think this has been done. So it's not that it cannot be done. So it is informed consent which is necessary. What form? I think that can take up.
That is for the individual place to decide. I think that should conclude this topic for today. Yeah. So the second one is it's regarding addressing the discrimination of HIV patients and doctors treating HIV patients by insurance companies regarding professional indemnity and mediclaim.
So I think
It's
it's
Would
a
you
insurance,
like to start?
indemnity, mediclaim for HIV patients and healthcare professionals. Would you like to start? I think.
आणि एक वेळ सुरू करायचं आहे. Please don't diverge from what you are expected to discuss. We're just looking at, is the law anomalous, number one? Do you require some change in that? Do you need to add something to it? But let us not discuss on one situation in one hospital, this was what has happened, or how I would implement the law. Otherwise, we are wasting time. You have time only till 1 o'clock. We have lot.
Yeah, sir, I'll just say my view about this and then we can build on further. Regarding this professional indemnity and mediclaim, like what I personally feel is that it is something between an individual who is a doctor and the second individual which is the insurance company. right? So making specific laws or giving something specific, what I feel is not very feasible also, because now again, because insurance is totally individualized. Every individual will have different situations, and accordingly his claim and all those things would be there. So now you can start.
See, now the insurance company have their own rights, no problem. But when they have been diabetes, for example, my age is more, they charge more from insurance claiming, etc. But for HIV, they would include only for the insurance. One HIV is no insurance for them. That's the problem. So I think law should come here that they cannot discriminate among. They have to take the HIV positive patient as a positive for the insurance. There should not be any this at all.
We are talking about professional indemnity, not for the
Professional indemnity.
Both.
First let's talk about professional, and then we can talk about patient.
Basically, what I feel is now, I mean, people are leading good quality life, and there is no that much risk with the insurance companies for the compensation, and they must include it, and they are the people, they need it. So I think they should not discriminate on the basis of HIV.
Maybe little bit higher.
What he says is right, we have to discuss about the professional indemnity. The professional indemnity is the thing where we are protected when we are treating a HIV positive patient. And that is not being given to us by the insurance company. Okay, so this is a discrimination against the doctors who are treating HIV. And this is, here we have to suggest, I am not going to say that we can change it, but this strong message should go to the insurance company, basically to the IRDA, on which basis they are doing it. If you see the longevity, life expectancy of diabetes versus HIV, it is much more in HIV than in diabetes. And for a patient who is diabetic and doctor is treating, there is a full indemnity. And why? What is the reason? We don't know. So we should send a very strong message to this conference that the IRDA has to look into this matter of indemnity to the doctors treating HIV.
No, actually. Indemnity for first, this topic is, there are two issues. One is insurance of the patient. That is larger issue. Indemnity to doctors is a smaller issue. Secondly, he is contradicting himself that with HIV patients are living so longer. So then we don't need indemnity. If we are talking about patient.
No. Nothing that it is nothing to do with longevity. If something happens to my patient, he sues me, then what? That is what indemnity is.
So, firstly, we discuss about insurance companies which are denying insurance based on HIV status. I think insurance companies formulated their law about 10-15 years back when HIV longevity was 5 to 10 years, and they thought there would be overburden with a lot of claims on HIV positive patients. So now people are surviving 25 to 30 years. That is one issue. Secondly, there can be two different divisions in that. Person is dying or we say with HIV related illness and non-HIV related illness. So long as medical claims are there, currently they are not covering HIV treatment at all. But even non-HIV related treatments or like surgery or transplant or anything, they are not covering. So HIV positive person is denied entire medical claim or insurance. So that is the issue. We need to harmonize and make some kind of legal binding on insurance companies or IRDA. Don't do that.
No, IRDA has already done that. They have issued a circular. The problem is not related to the issue of HIV in itself. One of the things that is happening is currently they don't have so much of data to develop life tables. No? I don't know how many of you perhaps know about life tables. No? Like you say somebody is 40 years old and he comes for insurance. You suddenly find a person who's 40 will have a higher premium than 25. How did this happen? Because there are life tables which the insurance company has. But for HIV there was no such thing before. Because most of them used to die. So suddenly they used to be worried that how much of premium should I pay? Because unless I project, see these companies are not doing charity, no? They have to run a business. And once you know that this was 100% fatal, they would require life tables to decide on that premium. So that otherwise they would pay more of compensation. The reinsurance companies would not be willing to do that. The first of such experiments with insurance companies that was successful was in South Africa only, in the developing world as such. So we need to promote that part. So there is no debate on that insurance should be offered to HIV infected individuals at the backdrop of not only increasing lifespans, but free treatment is also available. The government is providing free treatment, so there is no liability as much on the insurance companies today. I would come to indemnity, which is a crucial issue. Indemnity, when we say that what is indemnity, if some patient sues me over something, that I did something wrong, and then ask for compensation. It is indemnity that will protect you. You will find that the insurance company will pay money, whatever legally is determined to that individual. But for HIV, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, there is a complete exclusion. Right? They say we will not do it. The reason was it never had good treatment available at that point in time. See, why does this become important? It becomes important, let's say I am a surgeon, I have operated an individual, he came out as HIV infected. It may be due to blood transfusion that was provided, it may be due to somehow, something went wrong and there was iatrogenic, occupationally it was transmitted to that individual. I may be HIV positive, I may be whatever. Insurance company did not pay for indemnity if the claim was based on HIV, Hep B and Hep C related one. Right? But today we know Hep C is completely curable. Hepatitis B is not a major issue as of now. You have good drugs. And you have HIV, which is very well treatable. So we need to argue that HIV infected individuals, HIV practitioners as such, should be offered the indemnity as such, and HIV should not be an exclusion criteria. HIV, Hep B and Hep C, all three should be. For Hep B, it is very easy, you have vaccine also. So why am I unnecessarily making so much of issue? We need to advocate that with insurance companies, IRDA, and law should ensure that these three are removed from the exclusion.
What Ganga sir said is absolutely right. That the IRDA chairman, Mr. Vijayan, in 2013 October only has issued the guidelines to all the insurance companies. And they were supposed to implement by April 16. But till date they have not implemented so far because I have talked after going back from the last discussion. I went to one of the insurer company, not the agent, but he is basically actual science scientist, which basically decides what the premium should be there, what exactly. So they said the same thing. Because of the vaccine and waning of the HIV issue, initially it was very bad disease, and then there was some company came out with the insurance to these people at a very, very high premium. So that is the issue, but that issue is going to get solved. What that they have, he has told me that it's a very strict guidelines for IRDA already issued to all insurance companies that they have to come up with a policy for HIV positive. And secondly, as rightly said, I am worried more about indemnity. But fortunately, sir, I am not an agent also for any organization, but the IMA, that is the Indian Medical Association, has started their own indemnity, national as well as the state.
Professional protections.
Exactly. So, no, that is different. PPA is different. They have their own indemnity insurance. I have also taken it, and that includes HIV. So I don't have to worry as far as I am concerned. So they are having their own insurance.
No, but they cannot have their insurance company.
So they must have attached with the IMA that clause is not there. Otherwise, in each and every form, if you can see at the bottom, they have written HIV, hepatitis C not covered. So the IMA is covering that.
How will IMA cover? Unless and until there is some insurance company which is insuring IMA. You can have a group insurance. Like in government, all government people have group insurance. But in group insurance, that one company which is there where you are registered. Which is that company? There are 4 government companies and there are 10, 15 private companies. So which is that company which is having no exclusion for HIV, HIV?
No, there is no company which does that. We had to explore a lot for clinical trials in our institute. There is neither a public sector insurance company, no private sector insurance company provides any kind of agreement without exclusion clauses. So it essentially means there is nothing that is currently available to any of us when it comes to indemnity. And please remember, indemnity will start. Why this should be a worry? Not only after passing HIV infection to others, but if my patient is HIV infected, then I am not going to pay for compensation. That's a pretty serious issue. And also at the backdrop that today, when it comes to compensations, you find there is a compensation which could be 1 crore, 2 crore rupees, whatever is coming to their mind, they are leaving it. No, somebody has to stop this. No? For HIV, today you are protected only because the individual feels that if he declares he is HIV infected, then he could be discriminated socially. Otherwise, we would have been in the same run-of-the-mill story. For other diseases, you have all kinds of compensations that are being claimed. HIV was no exception as a general thing, but it's just the social stigma that is stopping us. But this social stigma may not last long, so we have to advocate that they have to drop this clause.
I think by law we should at least mandate 4 government insurance companies to exclude that exclusion clause of HIV, HCV, and HPV. Ultimately, private also will have to follow, but there has to be a very strong guideline, note, or law which will be able to.
So right now, if I am HIV positive, then I can't treat them. So I have not included this. What is actually the rule? What is
No, indemnity means if somebody gets
HIV from my side, that
but from your side, your hospital, your staff,
Your patient dies.
and he sues you that because of this doctor, because of this hospital.
नहीं, वो भी क्यों चाहिए? मैं आपके पास पेशेंट करके आया, HIV इन्फेक्टेड हूँ, और मैं आपको बोल रहा हूँ कि आपने मुझे गलत ट्रीटमेंट दिया, इसलिए मैं आपको सू कर रहा हूँ. Just because that person is HIV infected, I will not be able to claim compensation from the indemnity thing that used to come from insurance. No, it is not only passing HIV infection, but any person who is HIV infected, any person who is hepatitis B or C infected, which means today we don't have any insurance. So that's something which we have to do.
So basically, HIV caring community has no indemnity at all because we are caring only HIV positive.
I think that's a very strong
treating community. HIV treating community.
Yeah.
HIV treating managing community have no indemnity at all because we are managing HIV.
Or HIV. I treat a diabetic patient, I will get indemnity.
No, he can sue you for anything, but because the person is HIV positive, the patient who are treating is HIV positive.
He is saying that if a diabetic person claims compensation, he has no worry. But if it is HIV infected, hepatitis B.
If a diabetic person is found HIV positive, then they will dispute.
But what is
Till you prove that diabetes is not related to HIV.
Like Sir said, with the developments in the treatment, now what you're saying is there is no reasonable differential between, let's say, a hepatitis B, C, and HIV, and pretty much any other disease you treat. Because now you're able to treat them, you're able to manage it, you're able to limit it. So now that these diseases have been brought on the same level as pretty much any other disease that doctors treat, there is no reason for insurance companies to differentiate. So basically, in law, if we're able to point out that there is a rational difference between A and B, and which is why I treat them differently, you can still, there are provisos which let you do so. But you have to point out that there is a rational difference. And in the past, there was a big difference between how you treated these diseases and how you treated pretty much anything else, along with the instances of these diseases, the strata to which they were conceived, the number of doctors who dealt with it, the spread of them, the knowledge regarding these diseases. But now that knowledge regarding Hep B, C and HIV in particular, given our topic, now that information and knowledge regarding HIV is more easily available, more people are informed, there are proper treatment procedures, it should be treated like any other disease. There is no reason why a doctor should not be indemnified for this. Because now you have brought it on the same level as pretty much anything else. So now there's no reason for an insurance company to turn around and tell you, no, there's a big difference between the two. So I'll cover you for one and not for the other.
I'll just make a clarification.
If the patient is positive or diabetic, medical negligence is going or whatever.
Sir, actually the thing is the amount of compensation that is given, it is not on the basis of the patient's disease. It is based on the basis of what the patient has lost. Right. So irrespective of whatever disease the patient is suffering, it is how much that person has lost. So a young person, an executive or a high earning, definitely the amount of compensation would be much more as compared to somebody who is already retired in his 60s or 70s and not earning that much. So that is the basis of deciding how much compensation that the court gives. Right. So in that what we feel is HIV is like just any other disease. So it should be, if HIV is the patient gets HIV due to the doctor's negligence, then the court has to decide how much the patient has lost because he has got this disease. That is what the court has to do. Ultimately, it is not whether the patient has HIV or not. It should not be a consideration for deciding whether indemnity should be given or not. That is precisely what we are saying.
I don't know whether you know what is called as Workman Compensation Act. Now, when you apply Workman Compensation Act, even if you look at what amount will it come to if you have to pay for somebody's life, the amount could range between 8 lakh rupees to 72 lakh rupees. But if you are not covered by professional indemnity, from where are you going to pay? No, and it's not a small sum. Minimum amount is 8 lakh rupees. By minimum wages that were prevalent earlier, now Modi government has also increased minimum wages. So Workman Compensation Act takes that minimum wage first and then calculates the amount.
Just a question. 1 minute. These days nobody goes to court with Workmen's Compensation Act. Everybody goes into Consumer Court because Workmen's Act it takes years और कुछ मिलता नहीं है ज़्यादा, इसलिए कंज्यूमर कोर्ट में जाते हैं 6 महीने में फैसला हो जाएगा काम. That is what these days people are doing.
Number of my colleagues are not able to comprehend or understand. See, a case scenario: a patient sues you. If you have indemnity, then it is suing you, and you are making your insurance company party. And actual fight is between the insurance companies and the patient, not between you and the patient. In the absence of indemnity, or even if you have indemnity which is not covering HIV, HCV, HPV, then it is fight between you and the patient. And what he is saying that the judge will decide how much the patient lost. Ultimately, as a physician, you have to pay. So I think, despite all whatever efforts we will take and make law we pass, etc., this is a good case for us to go in PIL to the court and impose on the court or impress upon the court that indemnity insurance for the doctors should have that remove that exclusion clause of HCV, HPV, HIV. And that will be easily done. I don't think court will take more than 2 or 3 hearings to do that.
Sir, there's a basic problem with this premise, which is courts in India only explain law. If there is an exclusion clause and you want to strike it down, you can't go to a court. You have to go to your legislature. The legislature has to strike it down. The most the court can do is send a recommendation to the legislature.
Yeah, that's what.
But sir, the thing is that for that you would do much better to actually move directly to the legislature.
You continue doing that. You continue doing that. But they are too slow. AIDS bill is pending for 10 to 15 years in Parliament. And every season they say this season it will be passed, it has not been passed. It has been modified at least 10, 15 times. there has been some hearing before the Rajya Sabha committee, but nothing has been done. So I think we have to take proactive step. We know that courts are there to interpret the existing law; they are not to make the law. But as we see a trend in the last 8 to 10 years, courts are ruling and courts are making the government to make law. Ultimately, when you sue or you file a PIL, it is first party is the state. First party state is state government and union government both. So they are going to be party, and they say that on what basis you allow this law where they have put exclusion criteria. 15-20 years before it was different. Today's scenario is changed. Today HCV is completely curable. HIV is manageable up to 25 to 30 years. HPV is a chronic disease. Nobody is going to die of HPV. So why you have put them in exclusion? And over and above, if the only person is because HIV or HPV or HIV positive, even other things we are not indemnified. That is our rubbish.
No, I agree completely with what Vilada said.
Perfect agree.
You can't have a law for this because exclusion would be decided by emerging and re-emerging diseases. Tomorrow, suppose Ebola comes here in India, you would suddenly find the insurance companies will say, I will not offer insurance product to somebody who has Ebola. No. Tomorrow, let's say Zika comes, they might suddenly say, oh, any pregnant woman, I would be a little worried. Because they have to calculate, no, this is a business. So the law will never say you can't have exclusion of X, Y, Z unless it comes as a PIL as a specific condition. Exclusions will be there as a professional thing.
Madam, this exclusion is done by the insurance company, not by any law. The terms and conditions of the company. It is not under law.
State companies, basically, here we are talking about mainly state companies. Private companies also can be taken to task. But state companies, which are government of India undertaking companies, they are putting us in suit.
Their terms are not on law. These are terms and conditions of the company.
No, but still they are protected by law. They are protected by law. Their terms and conditions they are protected by law. Therefore, we have to challenge that law or the terms and conditions or make the lawmakers to agree to remove that particular.
There is a regulatory authority ILDA on them.
Yeah. I think Dr. Vilas is right. But going to a PIL, the courts will force them to take an early decision. They can't force them.
And in fact, when we go in PIL, we can expose the government that the AIDS bill is pending for 10 to 15 years. How long we should wait? And the court will impose on them that you are not deciding anything. Therefore, courts have to decide. Every day you can hear the Supreme Court or High Court saying that because government is not doing, therefore we have to do it. We have to take a proactive.
Sir, the problem with that approach is that when the Supreme Court does that, what they're doing is they're introducing guidelines, but that's not law. For example, when you come to sexual harassment in the workplace, the government was not passing a bill fast enough to deal with it. So what the government did in a landmark case, which is Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan, it gave suggestions saying if you want to look at what is sexual harassment in the workplace, these are the tests that you have to do, these are the scenarios that will exist. But that still is not legally a bill, it's not an act. Your act came a good, I think, a decade after that judgment.
But madam, one thing, if we get even that kind of guideline from High Court or Supreme Court, and if somebody sues us, then we can use that guideline or court order in our favor.
But sir, the problem here is you're not happening upon a brand new field. Like when it came to sexual harassment in India, there was literally no legislation regarding what is sexual harassment in India. Which is when the Supreme Court was saying, you know what, till this legislative vacuum is filled, I am just giving you certain guidelines. But when you're coming to insurance and indemnity, now this is a field where there are proper laws. You have insurance companies which are bound by their own charter. Then you have precedents in these cases. So here it's more of a minefield. There's no vacuum for the Supreme Court to fill. Because all that's going to happen is that, let's say you even wrangle an order out, it will be struck down because it's not tenable, it's not constitutionally valid. They don't have the power to do so. So, what you can do, however, is challenge the terms and conditions and prove that there is no differentiable, there's no rational difference. Now, that is the way to go about it. You say there is no rational difference between now, today, as a doctor, I can tell you, as a professional, there is no difference between HIV and any other disease. And now HIV is treatable and we can limit the spread of it. So now, in view of these new facts, your terms and conditions are no longer valid legally. They are untenable and illegal. So then you go to the Supreme Court. That's how you go there. You don't go there and say strike it down.
No, you have to challenge guideline only. Means their terms condition.
But suggestion also.
State to make law.
Suggestion also is that IMA or any doctors association gets together and also puts a petition straight to Parliament, saying, look, laws also, yes, it takes time. I agree, the AIDS bill has been pending, but the cogs of the government work very slowly.
No, but in any circumstance, for that business, you can't have a law that is HIV specific, hepatitis B, hepatitis C specific. No, eventually this is a dynamic field. Tomorrow new disease might come where the company will say, oh, there is no treatment and I want to put it into exclusion. So exclusions is a right. Exclusion is a right of that company. Therefore, what you have to do is challenge it through PIL that these exclusions have to be dropped. Because no law can ever say that you have to offer everything to everybody. No?
No, I think
So put across like that, what we need is a test. You need to say if a disease, there is a certain test where if a disease cannot be treated, it cannot be controlled, it is highly infectious. So if these criteria are met, we will now not cover you for that disease. But if these criteria are no longer met for this disease, then immediately it moves out of the excluded list to something that you have indemnity for, which would in turn mean that you don't have to keep, like you said, it's a very vital thing. It keeps growing, it keeps mutating, it keeps changing. So in order to not have to go every time say strike A off the list and put it here, strike B off the list, what you say is for A, B and C to be on this list, they have to fulfill A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now if they do this, they are excluded. The minute these criteria are not met, they are immediately included and indemnified for it.
In LIC, initially they had a clause of doing HIV test or anything, some assured of above 5 lakhs. Now that has gone to 1 crore. Now, if you are insuring for LIC, HIV was exclusion criteria. HIV test was compulsory for all the tests, sum assured of above 5 lakhs. Now it has gone to 1 crore. So if you are doing LIC of sum assured for 1 crore, then only your test will be done for HIV. Now, if you look at any issue to be resolved, there are 4 remedies available largely 4 remedies available to all of us. One is of manpower or mass, which we lack. We cannot have a morcha of thousands of people against this indemnity and this thing. So we are barred from that. Number 2 is media, publicity. That we can use it, but that also depends on your action. Nobody will just publish because they may publish a small news. But if you file a PIL, then that publicity will lead to PIL. Thirdly, state legislature or executive power, which is with the state machinery, parliament as well as the executive machinery. That is biggest power, but sometimes they don't act on their own. And fourth is judiciary. So these 4 pillars of our machinery where from we act, one of them is very weak, so we are only depending on 3. Only if we file a proper PIL, go on proper ground, that is linked to the publicity. If these 2 things successful, third thing will be done. If we are not able to link publicity with PIL, nothing would be done also, because the law is passed and some guidelines are given by court, they may or may not be followed. Nobody is going to file contempt of petition or something. So ultimately, we keep on pursuing the executive machinery or parliamentarians through whatever contact we have, and that may take some time. But we must file PIL, challenging the guidelines of or rules and regulations of their exclusion criteria. And based on the change of scenario in last 20 years, probably courts will entertain and they will ask the state machinery to look into it. So even if a simple order is given to them, we ask the state machinery to look into it, they have to look into it. They cannot ignore.
Sir, what I say is, on this issue already a lot of discussions have occurred and the IRDA has given strict guidelines which has already been passed. Now what we want to do is, we have to further strengthen it by giving the information, the correct information to IRDA. There is no point in going to the Supreme Court or High Court or the judiciary or to the parliamentarian. if we can force upon IRD for the strict implementation of its own laws. If what IRD has said, then let me complete. What IRD has said, the letter is, it was there in the Times of India that time, that all the insurance company have to abide by the decision of IRDA to include HIV in Mediclaim as well as life insurance. What has happened after that? The best thing which has happened after that is all the claims from the insurance company wherein a patient was, a disease was HIV positive and he was not coming into the early claim, that is the claim before 3 years, within the 3 years of the death. Now they are giving the compensation to each and everybody. It is only the question now in LIC, in the insurance company, where there is an early claim. And if you see, early claim is there for most of the diseases. It is not only for the HIV. It is for diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, everything. So that is already changed. Now if we want to focus, our main thing, it should be on the Mediclaim for the HIV positive. Mediclaims.
No, I'll explain to you. In court, there are two main jurisdictions. One is suit jurisdiction, one is writ jurisdiction. In the writ jurisdiction, in one case, we can put so many other people party, including IRD. To make our case stronger, what do we need to do? You say IRD is already a body like MCI. We write to IRD, what are you doing? They may or may not reply. If they reply negative, that becomes some strong case for us. If they don't reply, then still it becomes strong case for us. We write to state machinery, government, that we doctors are facing this problem. What are we going to do? Same thing, whether they reply or they don't reply. With just 2-3 letters written to respective authorities, then we go to the court. In this jurisdiction, if it is an individually aggrieved party, it is an individual case. If it is a group of people, it becomes a PI. So what we need to do is we need to individually 2-3 people have to write to insurance company that I would like to indemnify myself. The moment they say that you will be indemnified with this particular money, this is the fee, provided 1, 2, 3, 4, including exclusion criteria. With that we go to court that look, we are not indemnified. On one hand, you are asking us to treat everybody we are treating, or we are providing care, we are providing without discrimination, and those who are providing proper care without discrimination, they are being discriminated. So this is something writ jurisdiction. Either in individual case, if somebody is active party or PI, there will be definitely some order. There will be definitely some order. And IRDA, State of Maharashtra, State of Government of India, Joint Judiciary Ministry, 4-5 insurance companies, they will be all party to that.
But there is no issue as such in insurance. What is the
Sir, once again, time is the constraint. So I just summarize.
Just one thing. I just really want to know what is the issue, because they are providing the basic the life insured. The issue is only Mediclaim and indemnity. That's right.
So that's what I was just going to say. Like one thing we all agree that these should be stricken off from the exclusion criteria of the mediclaims and claims and all those things. Now, how it has to be done, I think we have lawyers with us. So whether going to the court is prudent or not, I think they are better people to judge that as compared to us, because we are not that well versed with what the law or judiciary can do and what they cannot do. So that is, I feel, something that we should leave to them, because they are the specialists in that. Whether going to the court is right or not. But definitely going to the IRDA and media and all those things, that definitely we can do at our level. I think that, would that be a...
No, IRDA is not a legal body. IRDA only issues guidelines. It is up to the insurance agency to decide whether they want to follow it or not. That's number one.
Is IRDA mandated by Parliament?
So one
No.
thing I tell you,
That has to be like a-
slightly different. IRDA gives a certificate to an insurance company to practice.
अरे बाप मी आता एकच सांग एक बोलतो this particular IRDA order came after an international conference of insurers which was hosted by NACO, when we had raised these issues of insurance with NACO. There were Swiss re-insurers who were also part of the same. Swiss re-insurers were very much keen to see that Indian insurance companies become progressive. IRDA people, they accepted everything. So they issued guidelines, but it still doesn't go beyond that. Like you said, Mediclaim and indemnity continues to be a issue. It is very difficult to break that monopoly of insurance companies as such. The second issue which I would just flag, can we have a law for this? To my mind, one caution that I would always keep in the mind is if I say any life-threatening condition as one of the criteria to ensure that the dynamicity of the law continues to be there, law tends to remain flexible, or where there is no cure. If I put it as one condition, it is possible that if I use such terms, the insurance companies will apply it so rigorously that those diseases which were never excluded so far might also become a part of exclusion. So we need to be very, very careful. I still feel PIL is the answer.
Last one.
So this is just for you to file a writ petition. A fundamental right of yours needs to have been violated. Now here, as doctors we're saying our fundamental right to indemnity has been violated. Now is indemnity a fundamental right? That is one question to be considered. A second one is for it to be a PIL means public interest litigation. For a writ petition to qualify as a PIL, you have to prove that the cause that you're fighting for is good for the general public. Now here in your specific case, indemnity for doctors is not good for the general public.
No.
It's good for the doctor community.
You are wrong, madam. It is not general community. It is for any community. If you are aggrieved as a group, whether you are doctor, lawyer or any group, we have been fighting PILs for so many years. They are not like we fought for increased medical seats. How it is good for community? We are fighting only for medical students to get medical seats.
For there to be more doctors in the future, which in turn is good for the community. Even if you are able to even if you are able to classify this as a PIL, which we say you are. I truly feel that in order to get this struck down, while the Supreme Court all it can do at the end of the day is send a suggestion to the center, to the state, to the legislative mechanism. It can only send a suggestion because there is no legislative vacuum for it to fill.
No. They send a suggestion and they give a date. Next date is 4 weeks. Come out with suggestion. It is not indefinite.
Sir, they've been doing this, for example, in the black money matter, where the Supreme Court says, we want the government to come back with a reply in 3 weeks. We want the government to come back with a reply in 3 months. This in no way hastens the process. While you're right, it does get media attention, it does draw the public eye. It in no way hastens the process.
It depends on how you impress upon judge and how the judges get impressed that yes, it is very important, it is significant. And then they will ask government, you have to come within 2 weeks, 4 weeks, twice, thrice they don't come out, then they give orders also. Like that.
So if you're talking a lot of things which are pressing, but the Supreme Court is also bound by its constitutional powers vested in it, which it's very easy to romanticize the same. However, they are limited.
I think they are only in one place, and that was, I think, when they started about the pollution control, especially seeing the Delhi pollution control, they made it mandatory that you have Mark II vehicles and Mark III vehicles by this particular period. Except for that, I don't remember that you had clear-cut legal judgment, which was not there in law, and they put it something as practice. But I think nowhere they just recommended this should be there or whatever. But I think it's very difficult to get that. You are right, people are be asking for PIL. I agree with that particular aspect. It will give a lot of media attention.
What I am saying, ultimately,
we should do our job.
I'm Sansad Badai.
Yeah.
They will do it. Why there is some pressure
There is some
there.
pressure too. It will be like a pressure.
You have already
we have to do our
to
job.
the parliamentarians and executive machinery. When it is coming from legal machinery, they'll say yeah, say yeah.
Right, sir. So let's now move to the last topic for the day. It's denying the right to adopt by HIV positive couples. What are the changes or clarifications that are required? Basically, right now, I think she will be a better person to explain it.
There has recently been a Bombay High Court judgment where a HIV positive couple was not allowed to adopt. Now, they haven't challenged it, so it remains as it is. However, if you look at technically, to tell a HIV positive couple that you cannot adopt is discriminating against them. Especially, in the light of what we have discussed today, we realized that HIV is no longer, an untreatable disease, and we have made leaps and bounds in treating the same. So, I feel that it is very discriminatory and violative of a couple's rights, a HIV positive couple's rights, to tell them you cannot adopt under any circumstance. However, like when Sir and I were discussing it earlier, and he said what really troubles them is, what really troubles me is that the life expectancy of parents who have HIV is much shorter than maybe a normal parent. And that is something that we should all keep in mind when we're deciding whether we should let a HIV positive couple adopt or not. Because the chances of a child getting the disease from parents is very minimal, and that is something that the court should not worry about. So, my personal thought on how to rectify this problem is that in India we already have a very rigorous adoption process. If you want to adopt a child, you're evaluated psychologically, there are various criteria concerned, you're made to go through application process. I feel that when a HIV positive parent wants to adopt, they should just be an additional, a slightly more rigorous process where doctors are brought in. They are made to evaluate whether the parents are being treated, whether they are undergoing treatment, what do you think their life expectancy will be? Are they taking the right care of themselves? Are they informed regarding their disease? Again, do they have informed consent? When did they get tested? What state are they in health-wise? And once a doctor gives a certificate saying that a HIV positive couple is taking care of themselves, they're getting treated, their life expectancy is normal, I think at that point with an additional doctor's certificate, they should be allowed to adopt. But
if they want other profession, cirrhosis for alcoholic patient, then also they need the doctor's certificate or not?
Yes.
Yes.
They undergo all prospective parents undergo exam, all tests.
HIV negative, there's a couple who's adopting. Can you insist that I want a child to be HIV negative? There is nothing or there is no regulation for that?
No, I'll tell you one thing. In adoption, for any adoption you apply, there is an adoption officer or counselor. They go to the family, they assess the family, they look at all other issues like alcohol, who is the backup in the family, what kind of the history they have, how many marriages they have done, the sexual abuse, everything. What issue we are discussing is, do HIV positive couple have a right to adopt? Currently they don't have because they have denied. We are just only looking from the point of view of HIV positive couple. Are we looking at from the point of view of a child? Whether the child has a right to be adopted by parents who are going to live longer, going to be healthy, going not to be sick, so that at least they will concentrate something on the child that their own health. So I think this issue is contentious and debatable, and that will continue to be what Madam says, that there has to be a medical community brought in picture who will certify what are their viral loads, what are their CD4s, if there is backup service, if one of them die or both of them die, is there any backup service for the child? Is there any enough property or enough thing which will take care of the child? These issues will come in picture and medical community will come in picture. So it is not only rights of HIV positive couple, but it's also right of a child to be adopted.
It matters to the child also.
Each patient was different.
I think, there are two issues which we need to think about. We are not to debate on the processes which you need to adopt for implementation of law. No? As it is, any adoption which you want to do, the parents are also scrutinized, including medical examinations. No? So there is nothing to worry on that. His issue was whether the child's HIV status needs to be ascertained. No, it is always ascertained. Because that is another oral order of Bombay High Court, which actually led to the subsequent orders coming. They asked HIV test to be done for every infant or every child that is going to be adopted. unfortunately, it was not backed up with that if I am HIV infected, I should not be discriminated just on my HIV status. But today we don't need that. I think it's a very fair this thing that HIV positive parents should also be allowed to adopt, subject to the provisos, whether they are healthy, whether they are socially okay, whether they have some property or whatever, which is applied to every disease, not necessarily only HIV alone.
I think that's perfectly valid, and the HIV positive couple, sometimes they don't want to have their own child, they want to take a child who's negative, and if they are hale and hearty, they can afford, they are on primary drugs or therapy, they are controlling their disease well, they should have all rights, provided there is, all the things are met. So I think if all the things are met with, they should be given all the rights for adoption. The scrutinized committee should be there to scrutinize the whole issues, so that they see that the child doesn't suffer. It is the right of the child as well as the parents. The parents should have the right at least to adopt. The scrutinized committee can refuse, fine, but that is a scrutiny. Then saying which is they are not suiting them. But just blankly refusing it, I think is wrong.
One point, Dr. Gilada said that the child's rights also, because when he is old, also he also I'm staying with HIV positive parents. It is stigma to child also because school will go staying with HIV positive family's son, so he may be positive, etc. Stigma also maybe has to delay or deal with the patients or the child. So then he will say, I adopted me, I was negative, you are positive, so you are bad people, I'm good people, like that. And also problem may become.
I don't know what is the position with respect to the new surrogacy law for HIV. No. In the broader clauses, like I know MSM, they said no, men having sex with men cannot go for surrogacy. Single parents cannot go for surrogacy.
Foreigners
No, but I don't know all the exceptions.
No, you see, the issue here is also what is available for the child. If the child has international adopters, if the child has other healthy adopters, if the child has some other like diabetic adopters and HIV positive adopters. We are taking in a hypothetical. The child has a right to decide what the child will decide, where the child will go. You see, sometimes what we have, when we talk about human rights, this, that, we go to extremes that these people have every right. HIV positive will have every right, MSM has every right, single parent has every right. What about the child? Will child not have?
So agree. So what I am asking is the same. The scrutiny committee takes a decision, but just blankly refusing just because it's seropositive.
So I'm in favor
that the child can
let probation officer give a probation report of the adoptable parents, their background, their follow-up of the adhesiveness of non-treatment, how often they are doing everything. Based on that, it can be done. It should not be blanket refusal. But we cannot say that no, they should be given.
No, I don't agree with that. So I'm saying the same way. Even a HIV positive couple may be sometimes a better candidate than the other. Let the scrutiny committee.
It is exactly the same thing. The medical community asked that all patients should be checked for HIV, and they started asking if surgery is positive or not. When the people came for adopting, they said no, child should be tested for HIV. So that came a mandatory law that every child is tested for HIV. So now child is being tested. HIV positive children, they are refused adoption. Hardly there are 2 or 3 cases in the entire country where HIV positive child is adopted, knowing that the child is HIV positive. And that too, maybe, I don't know whether it is a real understanding or just for the sake of publicity. But in the other way around, if the child is negative and parents are positive, they do the same thing. Now they are demanding that parents should be checked for HIV. And if parents are positive, it should be refused.
You're taking it to another extreme. Let us remember one thing, we should trust our science. Now today we can say somebody who is HIV positive, there are debates going all over the world now. that HIV positive individual will perhaps live longer than HIV negative individual.
No, if he has
Now what-
already lived 25 years. No, I'm saying if he has already lived 25 years.
If he has lived 25 years, then in that case, that will be ruled out because his survival span itself will look lesser. That is for any other disease, no? So those processes are already in place. Why bring out those issues? But you should not, HIV status should not be a ground, summarily for refusal. Rest of the processes continue to remain the same. Let's say I am a hemophiliac as one of the parents, no? Now, am I going to say no to a hemophiliac? He is going to suffer as much, but that will be judged by the rest of the parameters. He has to fit in the rest of the parameters, and that's done. Same thing should happen to HIV. Now, there are many morbid conditions. There is nothing that HIV is something which is super morbid of any kind. No, it's okay. So you have to just include and give them the right. My only worry is with that surrogacy thing. I don't know all the clauses.
One point I would like to add. You see, like you are testing child for HIV. Child is not HIV positive. Now, the adoptable parents, they have a right to either accept the child or not to accept the child. You cannot impose on them that though despite the child is positive, you must adopt. Similarly, the child is negative and adoptable parents are positive. In this case, who has a right? Child has no right because child is minor or young. So who is the legal parent of the child? Is the state machinery. So has the state machinery right to refuse or not on behalf of child? If you say the parents have a right to refuse the child because child is positive, how can you deny the same right to the child and machinery?
But who's saying that?
I'm saying. No. The issue here is HIV positive parents. Should they be able to adopt?
Subject to the scrutiny.
See, let us be little, let's look at it in a slightly different manner. If I say, today being HIV infected and receiving ART and taking it, listen, it is not, you are not trusting your own clinical acumen now. If I take ART, if I am regular with it, I am saying I am no different than any other individual in the society. If we accept that basic tenet, then the question of being looked at as HIV infected and could pose a risk to the child, it doesn't arise at all.
No, but the same privilege is for the child. Now, the child is also positive and child has a full life. Why you are not adopting the child?
So now you try to tell me, if it is the state, what does state decide on? It does not decide, should not decide on HIV status, but rest of the issues. Suppose I am somebody who lives on street and I want to adopt the child. The state might say no, no, he is sitting there on the road and he still wants to adopt a child. That's a common rule. No, they have to apply common law rather than common approaches rather than saying that just because he is HIV. If you speak like that, then possibly there is nothing that you can do with respect to child in medical life as such, because nobody knows what choices are we making and whether the child would like it.
Then the child would want a genetic makeup of the parents.
No. Basically, state makes guidelines, and guidelines should be applicable to most people. They are not going into micro details of everything. So if they decide a guideline, like they decided the child, HIV positive child, no people are willing to accept. Somebody will come forward, but chances are very weak. Similarly, the child is negative. They will make guidelines where the child can be best suited. And in the best suited criteria, if HIV positive couple is not best suited for the state, you cannot challenge the state because of that. Because on one hand, otherwise they should not have HIV testing at all. Whether the child is positive or negative, you adopt. Whether the parent is HIV positive or negative, they are adopted.
See, tomorrow, as a child I am now grown, and I say my parents are highly colored, very black. I didn't want that. HIV is like that now.
No. That way the child at 18 can decide whether to live with that highly colored parents or not.
All those issues cannot be solved. Should be referred to Arnab Goswami.
The nation wants to. The entire nation wants to know tonight.
The nation wants to know. Even you were saying one PIS go to legislative assembly and like we make a media. The fifth is approach is going to
or one pillar is very weak. We cannot gather to thousands of people. So go to Arnab Goswami.
In that adoption committee, doctors and medical
Yes. See, they decide on other conditions, not on HIV disease.
I think I'm agree with the advocate for once.
Thank you.
Sir, what I say is, in the adoption committee, the doctor doesn't only look in HIV, but he sees each and everything. So let the doctor decide it. Who is the adopting agency का जो doctor है, he should decide whether what is the viral load and everything. The first thing is very sure that we have to believe. If we can believe in our own science, then we should definitely allow them to adopt. The question of that baby is very important, as Dr. Kilada says. But as such, the baby cannot decide about in which family is going to take birth. At the same time, the baby cannot decide about the adopting family. So what we should try to believe in, that is in our science, our medicines, and let support the basic measure, the very important clause, that is the adoption by the HIV positive couples should be there.
Now, I'm putting the defense of a baby. Baby says, I'm HIV viral load undetectable. CD4 counts very well. I am under treatment. I am very particular on treatment. Even though baby is 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever, saying all that. Now, baby has a full right. Despite that, people are not adopting because baby is HIV positive. This is a debate. I'm not saying that my view is this or his view is that. I'm saying that what he says that baby cannot decide. In case baby cannot decide, state decides. State is baby's legal parent. Probation officer is a legal parent, or that child welfare committee is a legal parent. They have to decide. So in this situation, like the adoptable parents have their own privileges and rights to refuse adoption because baby is positive, baby, not only HIV, handicap, meningomyelocele, lot of conditions, they don't adopt the child. They go and see the child and say, what is the report of child? No, I don't want. So they have a right to refuse, and baby has no right to refuse. This is ridiculous.
Who says there is no right?
Huh?
No, do you think that they will agree to anything, any parent for that matter? They don't. No, so the choice is already exercised through the processes that are there. The question only is whether HIV status should be one of those conditions we should be used for it. That's all.
You say they have said reverse, why HIV status of
But
matter?
why do you think, it is possible, I might feel that I should have been born to Bill Gates, no?
No.
But where is the question?
Then you first stop HIV testing of babies. Irrespective of whether positive or negative, they should be adopted. Once you stop that, then you can have another law. Otherwise, you cannot say that one way HIV positive babies have no right or they have no privileges and nobody would adopt them. Hardly they will have to keep on waiting for some parents to come and say that okay, HIV positive doesn't matter. I have a patient couple with me who knowingly adopted HIV positive baby, and they are not giving up. They came to know later on that baby is positive, but they continue. They say no, positive negative हम लोग care करेंगे. But if you have law for testing every baby for HIV positive or negative, positive babies have no rights to be adopted or no privileges to be adopted by good parents. They have no choice. And then you say that same choice is available to parents, adoptable parents.
Hey, we are talking about this other way around. Here we are talking about if HIV negative babies, they are adopted. HIV positive babies can be adopted if the parents are willing for, right? In the same way, here right now, HIV positive parents have no right.
Can be adopted.
Yeah.
Here right now the rule is HIV positive parents have no right. What we are talking about is HIV parents can, just like the HIV positive baby can be adopted if the parents are willing. In the same way, if the HIV positive parents meet the criteria just because they are positive, they are refused, that should be wrong.
Should I give a solution? Should I give a solution? There was a big legal debate and there are legal cases about HIV positive person marrying HIV negative person. And a court banned positive negative cannot be married. And finally we came out positive can be married. Now if a HIV positive couple is there, we offer HIV positive baby. First preference will be given to the HIV positive couple. Let us see whether they are willing to do that. If that is taken care of, then all HIV positive babies will also be taken care of.
प्रैक्टिस ही नहीं कर रहा है। HIV पॉजिटिव चिल्ड्रन की संख्या कितनी है?
नहीं कितनी का छोड़?
नहीं तू ये जो बात कर रहा है मैं उसको दे दूंगा इसको दे दूंगा अरे किसको दे दूंगा?
Law is not for how many people. Law is not for how many people. Law is to protect that little minority which is at the fag end of the law. Law is not for
and then you are not looking at the overall majority of adults who are HIV positive who are denied adoption services altogether.
Why do you get a positive child? Why do you get a positive healthy child?
Why do you want to do that?
Then you stop HIV testing of baby now. That's what I'm saying. You firstly stop testing of HIV positive babies.
You need to understand still one thing, that testing the children, the child is also tested for neurological status. Do you know why? Because if I detect something, I should be in a position to treat it. No, I should be in a position.
Here the child is not tested for the sake of being in position to be treated. Here it is only for adoption. Child is tested for adoption.
And how will the parents know that the child should be tested and be provided care?
No. But here why the testing is done? By mandate of law that the adoptable child has to be tested for HIV, VDRL, HBsAg, HIV. So that means you are testing for the sake of adoption.
Because the parent should be aware of any.
No, it is not for that.
So why do you do that then?
Because they have made a law.
No, but why do you make a law if this is only to let them know what the child is suffering from? Why would I subject that child for all kinds of testing?
Testing process starts once they decide that I am going to adopt this child.
Yeah.
After that, then there is no problem.
Yeah.
But if it is mandatory, like you test, if baby is found positive, you are not going to
No,
adopt.
Harsh. Testing doesn't start at that. Testing is starting at the level of child, adoptable child, whether parents are there or not. Adoptable child, then all the tests are done, including HIV. And then the parents come, adoptable parents, then they see 4, 5, 6 babies in children home, and they decide, ये बच्चा मेरे लिए अच्छा है. The moment they come to know that the child is HIV positive, they say नहीं हमको नहीं चाहिए.
नहीं उल्टा बोल रहा है.
Which कैसा? I know the procedure. I have gone through this.
Testing is done subsequently.
No.
Once you decide on the child.
That is done every 3 months.
No.
If you want, they will retest.
What happens if, couple is serodiscordant, one is positive, another is negative?
They are still. No, they are taken as positive.
They are taken as positive. Why then?
That is because Dilada is saying that.
Dilada is saying that you are right. See, first you stop child being tested. If you consider that HIV is chronic disorder, you have treatment, you have management, everything, you want to stop discrimination and you are testing child, because which was started 20, 30 years back when the children were not surviving, they were not seeing their second or third birthday, that was different that time. They are now seeing manageable age, they are manageable, they are getting married. So why you test child then?
Dilad, I can agree with you in a few aspects. In the sense you are fighting for the child's right. It's not a wrong thing. In the same way you fought once upon a time with a whole generation of doctors who were discriminating about the HIV population in general. So I agree with that particular aspect. You are fighting for the rights. You may not be totally wrong. Maybe 20 years back, 5 years back, 10 years back, you may be accepted. What we are talking is a different issue right now. What we are talking about is an HIV positive parent. Can they adopt or not?
They can. HIV positive child.
So that is what is not allowed. It can't be a forced issue.
No, we are
can't be forced.
He would like to say
It can't be
that
forced.
black people will adopt black.
Right now they are not allowed to adopt any child.
See, adoptable parents, there is no force on them to adopt. They can live life without adoption. But if they are going for adoption, if there are some lacunae, similar lacunae than in another part, if you accept that, then you are acceptable. If you don't want to accept, I'm just giving a hypothetical case. If the parent says no, I will not adopt because the child is HIV positive, then why you should be given a HIV negative child? Why the child should accept you as a HIV positive parent?
This is like a different.
In law, you can't have assorted kind of services. No? If I am physically disabled, I must have parents who are physically disabled, or vice versa. No? Hey, this is.
No, but actually there should be more rights for the person who cannot speak or defend for themselves. Actually, more rights for them, not more rights for the.
That is why I am saying you are not looking at what is with HIV. HIV people will survive long. Yes, there is no issue with them as long as they are adhering to treatment which the government.
Well, I am saying the same thing about a child. Child is also HIV positive or living longer, 25-30 years. Why you are not adopting?
But how can you make a law that I must eat baingan ki bhaji every day? This is ridiculous.
If you are making that law for a child to be tested, there will be always law to parent to be tested. If you reject them based on them, they will be rejected. If you ask every patient to be tested for HIV, there will be law to test every surgeon to be tested for HIV. If the surgeon has a right to reject the patient, patient has a right to reject the surgeon.
But who's
Sir, but the testing for children is also done for their own safety, because when a child, no, I'm not.
It is not done here. It
No, sir, 1 second. In India, in orphanages, it's not like they only have one child or two children. They have like 50, 60 kids under one roof. So if you have a child with an infectious disease, in the interest of the other children who you're keeping under that roof, A, the child should be tested. B, the child should be tested so you can treat the child also. The child is a ward of a state. And not every intention of the state is decidedly malicious.
Madam, it is not happening like that. There was a child discharged from JJ hospital, HIV positive child, isolated. And then I went to that children home. Where was the child kept? In bathroom. I said, why in bathroom? Because there is no isolation place. The child was kept in a bathroom, in a cuddle. So, because they said we cannot risk other children. How the other children are risked from that HIV positive child? Tell me.
What has this got to do with
No,
this?
sir, if the child is tested for the sake of protecting the other children because it's an infectious disease.
For the protection of the child itself, for its own treatment, it has to be tested. So I'm just saying the negatives of removing such testing far outweigh the positives.
Why do we do blood group?
You're also testing for
a
the
child?
own child.
Listen to this. Why am I doing blood group of that child? It is to inform the parents that इसका blood group है वो आप आगे जब आएगा ना उसको वो देना पड़ेगा. This is not only unilateral thing that you test. Now with respect to
that's what I'm saying. It is a bilateral thing.
Sunna, people are not adopting those children. For that, you don't need a law. You need to do advocacy and try to tell people that this is not required. But you can't make a law that if somebody is HIV positive, the child comes out as HIV positive parents, one or two, they must adopt a HIV positive child only. That is not fair.
That is an option. But what I'm saying,
If I'm handicapped, I have to marry only handicapped lady.
Worse.
Or it's the other way around.
no. If so long as you have kept a criteria of adoption of a child, you do all these tests mandated. Only then adoption can happen. That means you are imposing HIV test on the child without child's consent because state is consenting. And the child, you are risking the child not to be adopted because he is a HIV positive child. She is a HIV positive child.
Listen, unfortunately, if tomorrow Zika comes, Zika will also become a part of testing. Would it not be?
So then you said Zika parents.
No, listen. It all depends on what are the common problems that a child is likely to face.
You rightly brought in Zika. Zika positive child, nobody is adopting. Now you say that Zika positive parents can adopt the Zika negative child.
But
That's what you say.
Are Zika positive parents?
They can adopt a Zika negative child.
How?
You are saying that.
Currently,
Zika is replaced by HIV.
So why can't they adopt?
Mentally retarded.
So why can't they adopt?
उसको पैसा देगा.
100% they can adopt.
No.
Zika positive parent, why can't Zika positive parent?
You are comparing the oranges with mangoes.
They brought in, You brought in the
No.
same basket.
So how can Zika come?
Zika का कोई संबंध ही नहीं है.
क्यों नहीं है?
Zika positive parent है कहाँ पर can't adopt a Zika negative child?
No, first thing we must understand is as an adult I could be Zika positive. but still it is not going to affect my meditation. That's one fact that I must tell you. If it is a child, no, which grows, Zika child with microcephaly grows into an adult, he is arguing on those lines, will I permit him to adopt? He cannot be permitted only because they will find he is incapable of rearing up a child just because he is mentally retarded, which would be uniform for any mental retardation, nothing else.
एक फ्लोर पे
लास्ट कमेंट
बाहर आया 3 हॉल एक लाइन से चालू है बाहर
This
भी आया
child becomes microencephalic, not the adult.
He become adult.
No, the adult doesn't suffer.
No, I think there are two sections. One section is that whether parents can adopt the child. I think you should, no one is against that, or everyone is unanimously agree for that. Problem is that HIV positive or negative child. I think this is what debate is there, because some points are really in favor of Kilada also and every others also. But I think a debate is there. So we can keep this debate on for further meetings also.
I think the issue that a parent has to be allowed right to
Right.
adopt has to be there.
Yeah, this is there. One part is there. Second part is there. Right from the child is there or not there.
That can be debatable issue.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Then what is debatable? You are not believing in the processes of state that they accessible.
They can modify over a period of time.
The thing is, we should do a capacity building for the social areas and everybody for the HIV positive adoption. One. And for HIV positive couple, we have to have the very strict thing that they can. Depending upon the opinion of a doctor.
For that, I think.
Sir, do you think the medical community should maybe counsel adopt, the state, CARA, the Department of, Women and Child Health Care, about how just because parents are HIV positive does not mean they're going to infect the child? So do you think that the government mechanism, which has said that HIV positive parents cannot adopt, do you think they should be counseled?
Probably they are not on, relying on the basis of they infect the child.
On life expectancy and whatnot. But basically, do you think that the authorities who decide this now require counseling, given the leaps and bounds made in treating HIV?
They require
Definitely. They will also require counseling.
So I'll just conclude as usual. First thing, if the parents are HIV positive, they should not be discriminated and they should be allowed to adopt the child. Regarding the child's rights, as I was saying, as Sir himself was saying, the state is the guardian, and if the state decides that HIV positive parents can adopt an HIV negative child, then that means the guardian is deciding that this person can adopt.
That's the choice.
Right. So the guardian has given the permission for that particular parent to adopt a HIV negative child and taken a decision on behalf of the child. So I think that is the final thing about this topic. And I would like to thank all senior people here. So you are all seniors, and today definitely both of us learned a lot from you all, your experiences especially about all these things. And I hope we will be meeting again soon and have discussion on something else next time.
When is the NCM electricity going to come up? Means anything from the government, anything is going to come up and we will push on that?
No, these what we have discussed today, they will be presented to the government and then followed up how the government takes up and how the government is going to act.
What is the current plan of action and what should be the...
This is occurring in multiple states right now?
I don't know.
I'll interview, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, happening it here once. On 16th, we have a follow-up session in Delhi, where whatever points are discussed here would be presented as a white paper to the ministry. So we have a session on 16th in Delhi.
No, this is over.
This is
Thank you. Go.
Thank you very much.
So we welcome the chief guest of the closing workshop, Preeti. I think we can just in a nutshell tell what we discussed.
Yeah, ma'am, the topic for this session was about HIV and AIDS, and we had to discuss about three things. First was regarding consent as far as HIV testing is concerned. And I think the unanimous decision was that there should be informed consent, but only after mandatory pre-testing, and there should be a follow-up post-testing also. Counseling, counseling. Yeah. So the testing has to be with a pre-test and post-test counseling. That should be mandatorily done. But the test should not be done without a consent. Consent has to be done. The second was regarding the discrimination of HIV patients regarding this professional indemnity and medical indemnity, all those things. So about that, what we decided that we should be yeah, and ma'am, in that we decided that at the relevant agencies, whether it is IRDA, whether it is court, whether it is media, wherever it is required, it should be followed up so that HIV and along with HIV, hepatitis B and hepatitis C also should be removed from the exclusion criteria for giving insurance or for settlement of the medical bills. Right. The exclusion criteria should be removed from that, which is present. And third was regarding the right to adopt a child by HIV positive couples. Now, regarding that, there was a unanimous thing that the HIV positive couple should not be denied the right to adopt a child. And there was a discussion about the child's right, about which there can be further discussions later. But regarding the parents, there is no discussion and no ambiguity that they have to be given the right to adopt a child. That is what the debate was about, the mandatory testing of the children. And that yes, ma'am. The thing is that the child's guardian is the state. So it is as the guardian of the child, the state has to decide what all are the things that has to be, the child has to be subjected to. So that is something for the government and the state to make a policy. We need to suggest that this is not right, and even if it is, it has to be only for the child's benefit. Whatever is done has to be for the child's benefit. No, that discrimination should not be. That is
That's